Chapter 31-24. All right. If you can't withstand the attack of the formation's core, come out directly. After all, where there's life, there's hope. He blocked He Yenhu's coiling dragon spear and transmitted his voice. Enraged, he began to fight and soon suppressed He Yenhu. However, he could not cause any actual damage to He Yenhu. Both sides quickly entered a stalemate, neither could do anything to the other. At this moment, He Yenhu said smugly, "You and I have fought for so many years, don't you know that I can hide in the void? What a brainless weapon." Humph. What do you know? When the heavens are about to give a great responsibility to man, it must first torment his mind, tire his muscles and bones, and starve his body. This is my way of training him. After He Yenhu finished speaking, the coiling dragon spear's artifact spirit said. He believed that the fragrance of plum blossoms came from the bitter cold, and the blade of a treasure was sharpened. Therefore, he deliberately left a chance for He Yenhu to attack. He believed that if Night Sorrow was real gold, then he would not be afraid of being refined by fire. You really know how to comfort yourself. When He Yenhu heard the coiling dragon spear say that, he immediately mocked in disdain. Then, he fought with him again. The coiling dragon spear laughed and said, "You don't understand at all. I understand now. You think that this ant in front of you can advance to the supreme realm. Ha, what a joke, what a joke." At this moment, He Yenhu suddenly understood the coiling dragon spear's idea and mocked him again. While they were fighting, Night Sorrow had completely entered the core of the formation. Just as he entered the core of the formation, he was attacked by the formation. Every attack of the formation was at the level of a heavenly supreme. These attacks bombarded the clone and immediately caused extremely ferocious damage. It caused the cracks that were slowly recovering on the clone to split open again at a speed visible to the naked eye. As the cracks grew larger, the attacks from the formation had already penetrated inside. Being swept by an attack of this level, he felt his internal organs churning. However, he still persevered in breaking the formation. Step by step, there was no deviation. However, according to Night Sorrow's judgment, according to the current progress, he definitely could not successfully break the formation before the clone was completely destroyed. What should I do? Faced with a mission that was almost impossible to complete, Night Sorrow continued to break the array while thinking about what he should do. In your current situation, if you want to succeed in breaking the formation, you can only rely on the attacks in front of you to strengthen your body. I'll try my best to let you hold on a little longer. Otherwise, it's useless to say anything. At this moment, Little Five, who was in the space paradise, reminded him. The three of them wanted to help, but they simply did not have the ability to do so. The attacks of the formation before them were all at the level of heavenly sovereigns. If the three of them were to come out, they would probably be smashed to bits. They were of no help at all. But when he heard this, Night Sorrow, who was closely involved, suddenly felt enlightened. Little Five, you're right. I must seize this opportunity to improve myself as soon as possible. After saying that, Night Sorrow began to temper his body while breaking the array. Let his body grow in the midst of the attack. The feeling was similar to when he was tempering his body during the tribulation. However, although only a little of the attacks of heavenly sovereigns had penetrated his body, the intensity of the attacks was very high. If not for Night Sorrow's strong will, he definitely would not have been able to withstand the feeling of tempering. Very good. This is the way to improve. Night Sorrow, you will definitely succeed. Little Seven encouraged him while Night Sorrow strengthened his body through the attacks. At this moment, they were bound together for good or ill. Naturally, they hoped that Night Sorrow could succeed. Don't worry, I will try my best to persevere. As Night Sorrow spoke, he continued to break the array, and the damage to his body began to worsen. Therefore, the attacks of heavenly sovereigns became even more terrifying. Good. After being baptized by such powerful attacks, Night Sorrow's body was in extreme pain. But mentally, he felt very carefree. He liked the feeling of fighting against the heavens and challenging his own limits. He didn't back down at all. But the cruelty of reality was definitely beyond anyone's imagination. Just as Night Sorrow's body continued to improve, his clones suddenly shattered. A large number of Heavenly Sovereign's attacks were all directed at Night Sorrow. At this moment, the coiling dragon spear was still fighting with He Yenhu and could not divert any energy to save Night Sorrow. What should we do? This is a hopeless situation. The moment the clone shattered, Little 5, Little 7, and Little 9 all cried out in alarm. Night Sorrow also realized that this might be the end of the world. However, he also knew that if he could not withstand the attacks of the Heavenly Sovereigns in front of him, then Bai Mei Sanren, the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast, Chen Qingyun and his wife, the restriction-breaking hammer, Little 5, Little 7, Little 9, and even the golden Heavenly Halberd would all die. He thought to himself, no. I can't die like this. Then, he tried his best to summon the clone that had already collapsed and merged it into the Phoenix armor. It allowed the Phoenix armor's strength to increase by a level in an instant. After the Phoenix armor was completely activated, it immediately blocked many Heavenly Sovereign's attacks. This allowed Night Sorrow to continue breaking the formation. However, this was only a temporary solution to the crisis. It was still not enough to support him to completely break the formation. Under such circumstances, the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast suddenly woke up and sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. I'll help you block the attacks, you break the formation. But you need to be faster. Are you sure you can do it? Night Sorrow sensed and found that the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast already had the strength of a Middle Earthly Sovereign. However, he was not sure if he could withstand the attacks of a Heavenly Sovereign. Although I can't hold on for long, I'm definitely stronger than you. After all, our realms are still there. The chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast said and came out of Night Sorrow's space to help Night Sorrow resist the attacks in front of him. With its cooperation, Night Sorrow finally succeeded in breaking the formation. Following that, the attacks that covered the sky and earth came to an end. At that moment, the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast was seriously injured. Although it had advanced to the level of a Middle Earthly Sovereign, the attacks of a Heavenly Sovereign were obviously beyond its endurance. Therefore, as soon as Night Sorrow succeeded in breaking the formation, the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast once again entered his space to recuperate. As for Little 5, Little 7, and the others, they were a little scared and felt that today was indeed a little dangerous. At this time, the battle between the coiling dragon spear and He Yenhu had reached a climax. Seeing that Night Sorrow had successfully broken the formation, he roared excitedly, I'll take you away. He put away the heavily injured Night Sorrow and took him away from the Demon Fall battlefield. However, He Yenhu also followed him out of the battlefield. Chapter 31-25. He Yenhu left the Demon Fall battlefield and searched around, but he did not find Night Sorrow or the coiling dragon spear. In the end, he flew straight into the void and went somewhere unknown. As for the coiling dragon spear that took Night Sorrow away, he immediately took Night Sorrow to find some natural treasures to help him recover from his injuries. After 5 to 6 years, Night Sorrow's injuries slowly recovered. As for the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast in his space grotto heaven, it was still in a deep sleep because of its serious injuries. After recovering, Night Sorrow thanked the coiling dragon spear and said, Senior, what do you plan to do in the future? Speaking of which, the coiling dragon spear had the strength of a half-step Heavenly Supreme. Even in the fog, he was a decisive existence, second only to those Supreme Realm experts. An existence of this level was basically impossible to figure out. After Night Sorrow finished asking, the coiling dragon spear, who had already transformed into human form, thought for a moment and said, "Now that Yanheng has fallen, I'm a little lost and don't know what path to take. If you don't have any ideas, why don't you come with me to the Slaughterer Academy and help that senior find a suitable body? When he breaks through to the Supreme Realm, we'll fight the fog together." Knight Sorrow saw that the coiling dragon spear did not have any ideas and immediately said. Hearing this, the coiling dragon spear shook his head and said, "You can't go to the Slaughterer Academy. Because those three existences might appear in the Slaughterer Academy. Even if you can successfully enter, you have to be careful. If I appear there, I'll be seen through immediately. Then I'll help you return to the Eternal Supreme World." Knight Sorrow asked after the coiling dragon spear finished speaking. He felt that the coiling dragon spear would definitely be exposed if he stayed in the fog for a long time. If those three existences discovered him, what awaited him would be destruction. What's the current situation in the Eternal Supreme World? Is everyone united and preparing for the battle against the fog? The coiling dragon spear asked. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow was speechless. The current Eternal Supreme World is divided into 10,000 realms, and these realms are basically a plate of loose sand. Most realms don't believe that a great calamity will come. Look at the time. How can they still be a plate of loose sand? How about this? You take me back to the Eternal Supreme World, and I'll go back and organize the situation. The coiling dragon spear looked at Knight Sorrow and said. Given his strength, there was indeed hope for him to unify the Eternal Supreme World. Good. Senior. I'll bring you to meet someone. Knight Sorrow said, then took the coiling dragon spear and began to search for the way to the Eternal Supreme Realm. Using the teleportation formation in the foggy area, he quickly returned to the Eternal Supreme World and headed to the Nine Mysteries territory. When they arrived at the Jiu Xian territory, they saw the Supreme Longevity. Knight Sorrow immediately summoned the coiling dragon spear and said to Supreme Longevity, "This is Senior Coiling Dragon Spear, the divine weapon of the Yanheng clan." He currently possessed the strength of a half-step heavenly sovereign. He had come back to help integrate the Eternal Supreme World. At present, the creatures in the fog are eyeing us covetously. The Eternal Supreme World can't be a sheet of loose sand. Indeed. But with my current strength, I can't do that at all. With Senior Coiling Dragon Spear around, things should be easier. As for the grudges between me and them, let's write them off. Supreme Longevity nodded and said after listening to Knight Sorrow. He would never forget the grudges of the past. Even after he had taken over the body, he had always wanted to take revenge. But in the face of the big picture, he was prepared to completely let go. Senior, you've suffered. Knight Sorrow will do his best to help you find a suitable body. Knight Sorrow said, then continued, then I'll leave the integration of the Eternal Supreme World to the two of you. As for me, I'll return to the foggy area immediately. Good. You can go in peace, but remember to be careful. Supreme Longevity said as he took out a space ring and handed it to Knight Sorrow. These are all heavenly sovereign rules and essences. Take them and use them there. Try to break through to the level of earthly sovereign as soon as possible. Speaking of which, your level is still too low. Yes. Senior. I'll work hard. Knight Sorrow did not refuse. He took the space ring and left the Nine Mysteries world. As for the other matters, he left them to Supreme Longevity and the Coiling Dragon Spear. The integration of the Eternal Supreme World was difficult. However, Supreme Longevity had already controlled many territories. There was a chance of success. After Knight Sorrow returned to the foggy area, he went straight to Boundless City. There were about 100 years before the Lu Tian Academy selection. It was about the time they had agreed on. Ha! Little brother Night Devil, you've returned on time. I'm very happy. Seeing Knight Sorrow's return, the governor of Boundless City heaved a sigh of relief. He then asked, how's the matter of saving your friend? His attitude was even more courteous than when Yi Shang had left. This was because another contestant from Boundless City had suddenly betrayed Boundless City a few years ago and joined the nearby Dark Hill City. Currently, Night Sorrow was the only contestant from Boundless City who could participate in the Lu Tian Academy selection. Night Sorrow could sense that something had happened. The governor of Boundless City had suddenly become more polite. He asked, "City Lord, has anything happened recently?" Sigh. Yes. Luan Xinwu, who I've been cultivating, betrayed us at the critical moment and joined the Dark Hill City, which is our enemy. This is a huge blow to us. It's too late for me to look for other contestants. Hence, I can only place all my hopes on you. Heavenly Supremacy Bao Tuqian checked Yi Shang's cultivation after saying that. Seeing that he had become an upper earthly sovereign, he said with satisfaction, "Very good. You're now an upper earthly sovereign. 100 years is enough for me to help you break through to the earthly sovereign level." Governor, to be honest, Night Devil has the ability to fight beyond his level. However, it's very difficult to break through at the same time. It requires a lot of resources. For example, if I want to break through to the earthly sovereign level, I need heavenly sovereign level rules and essences. Night Sorrow said embarrassedly. However, if the governor of Boundless City could really help him break through to the earthly sovereign level within 100 years, he would not mistreat him. Not only would he help him achieve good results, but he would also help him get rid of all the fog on him after his strength had increased. He would help him recover his original appearance. Night Sorrow only understood when he arrived at the foggy area. Originally, there were not many natives in the foggy area who could make a name for themselves. Currently, the cultivators who controlled the foggy area were all from the eternal sovereign world. Including the 3 earthly sovereigns, there were no exceptions. Hearing that Night Sorrow needed heavenly sovereign level rules and essences, the governor of Boundless City's expression became unnatural. This was because the heavenly sovereign level rules and essences were very important to him. Moreover, he was not very rich. After all, he only controlled one city. Clan. Chapter 31-26. Compared to Yunshi Heavenly Sovereign, who controlled 7 to 8 cities, it was nothing at all. If Night Sorrow took out enough resources to break through to the earthly sovereign level, he could basically empty it all in one go. However, when he thought of Anling's city master, Bao Tutian, who had been mocking him, he gritted his teeth and said, "Forget it. I'll take the risk this time. My lord. If I can successfully enter Lu Tian Academy, what kind of rewards will you and Bao Tutian get?" Yi Shang asked as soon as Supreme Bao Tutian finished his sentence. Although Bao Tutian was from the fog zone, Su Mo did not want to take advantage of him. However much he was prepared to give him, he would give him more. When Bao Tutian heard this, he immediately laughed and said, "I don't expect you to enter the top 10 and be selected by Lu Tian Academy. As long as you enter the top 1,000, I'll get back what I've invested." Are there any heavenly sovereigns participating in the selection? Night Sorrow continued to ask after Bao Tutian had finished speaking. He needed to have a rough understanding of the cultivators participating in the selection. Bao Tutian thought for a while and said, "Normally, there are no heavenly sovereigns. However, at the end of every selection, there are always people who can advance to the heavenly sovereign level. Usually, 3 to 5 people can break through. These people deliberately suppress their cultivation level and wait for the selection to break through. Generally speaking, there would be more than 10 half-step heavenly sovereigns participating in the selection of Lu Tian Academy. Therefore, Bao Tutian did not have any hope that Night Sorrow would enter the top 10. Got it. We can start now. 100 years is not long. I'll try my best to advance to the earthly sovereign level." Night Sorrow had a certain understanding of the people participating in the selection. He was very confident of getting a good result. If he could advance to the earthly sovereign level, he might even be able to enter the top 3. Then, he could accept the gift from Bao Tuqian with peace of mind. All right. I'll go get the resources. Just let me know if you need anything. After saying that, Bao Tuqian brought Night Sorrow into the cultivation room of the governor's mansion. He also left behind many heavenly sovereign rules and essences. Don't worry, City Lord, I will raise my strength as soon as possible. After Supreme Bao Tuqian left, Yi Shang set up a formation and began to cultivate. Because he was in the misty area, he had to conceal his identity and didn't dare to cultivate freely. Therefore, his cultivation progress wasn't fast. About 40 years later, Night Sorrow successfully advanced to the level of a half-step earthly sovereign with the help of resources. In other words, he was a peak supreme martial artist. In the following 50 years, although Night Sorrow tried his best to absorb the heavenly sovereign's rules and essence, he did not advance to become an earthly sovereign. At this time, Night Sorrow entered the space with the heavenly spirit flower. He wondered if he should consume the heavenly spirit flower to help him become an earthly sovereign. The heavenly spirit flower was used by others to advance to heavenly sovereign, but he felt that if he used it, he could use it to advance to earthly sovereign. However, they were in Baodu's city right now. If he were to consume it directly, there was no telling what would happen. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow decided to give up. Then, he observed the ancient coffin and the soil in the space. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with the ancient coffin, he was temporarily relieved. He was going to consume the heavenly spirit flower when he had the chance and then release the ancient coffin. He felt that carrying the ancient coffin was like carrying a time bomb. It didn't give him a sense of security. Wait until the Lu Tian Academy selection competition. 10 years before the competition started, Bao Tuqian came to the secret room and asked Night Sorrow to come out. When he found that Night Sorrow had not advanced to earthly sovereign, his face turned pale. However, he only had Night Sorrow in his hand now, so he didn't say anything. He just looked at Night Sorrow and said, "I don't have many requirements for the results. However, if you meet the cultivators of Anling City, you can't lose. Don't worry. I won't lose. If I lose, Night Demon will die on the stage." Night Sorrow didn't know the strength of the cultivators in Anling City. However, Anling City was like Baodu City. It was located in a remote area. There shouldn't be any powerful cultivators who could break through to Heavenly Sovereign in the battle. Therefore, he was confident in dealing with them. Good. It's enough to have such determination. The city lord of Bao Tu City added, "Right. Luan Xinwu, the cultivator who betrayed Bao Tu City, is an upper earthly sovereign. I'll kill him if I meet him." Yi Shang glanced at Sovereign Bao Tuqian and said confidently. For him, becoming an upper earthly sovereign was not a problem at all. Good. If you can kill him, I'll reward you handsomely. Bao Tuqian said, "The venue of the Lu Tian Academy selection is a little special. We can't use the teleportation formation there. Let's go now." Good. Let's go. Don't worry about the results. Night Demon won't let you down. Don't forget that I was fighting across realms when you first met me. Night Sorrow knew what Bao Tuqian was thinking. He smiled and comforted him. In response, Bao Tuqian smiled and said, "You're right. I can't look at you normally." After saying that, Bao Tuqian summoned his battleship. He brought Night Sorrow and 4 half-step heavenly sovereigns to the venue of the Lu Tian Academy selection. On the way, Bao Tuqian suddenly asked, "Brother Night Demon, where are you from? I feel that your aura is a little strange." Me? I'm not sure where I'm from. It's like I've been dormant for countless years and have just woken up. Night Sorrow replied calmly when Bao Tuqian said that. He said that because he was from the eternal sovereign world, he had only been corroded by the fog recently. Therefore, his aura was a little strange. Hearing that, Bao Tutian nodded and said, "No wonder. It seems like I have to make some changes to my aura. Otherwise, if I meet an expert like He Yanhu, my identity might be exposed." Knight Sorrow thought for a while and returned to his residence. He entered the space with the heavenly spirit flower and came to the ancient coffin to absorb some of the aura around the ancient coffin. The dark aura was much stronger than the ordinary aura in the foggy area. It also gave off an extremely evil feeling. After absorbing a little, Knight Sorrow felt that his aura had become even darker than Bao Tutian's. However, under such circumstances, he had to divert some of his attention to resist the corrosion of the dark aura. Otherwise, one misstep would cause him to regret for eternity. "Night Demon, why has your aura changed so much?" When Knight Sorrow appeared in front of Bao Tutian again, Bao Tutian was surprised. "To be honest, I got a black stone by chance. It's because I kept absorbing its aura that my strength improved so quickly. However, its aura is very evil." Knight Sorrow thought for a while and found a random reason. Stealing incense. Chapter 31-27. Black Stone. Hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Bao Tutian asked in confusion. He was very interested. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he continued, "Forget it. Everyone has their own opportunities. I won't ask too much about you." Bao Tutian was afraid that Knight Sorrow would overthink. After all, he was a heavenly sovereign, and Knight Sorrow was only a half-step earthly sovereign. If he attacked, Knight Sorrow would not be able to resist at all. "City Governor, you worry too much." Knight Sorrow said politely, but he did not take out the so-called black stone. After all, he had absorbed the aura from the ancient coffin. He could not carry the ancient coffin out directly. "It doesn't matter how you got it. What matters is your strength." Bao Tutian continued, "There should be some time on the way. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I'll tell you everything I know. Since the city governor has asked, I won't stand on ceremony." Upon hearing Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu's words, Yi Shang immediately thanked him. He really had a lot of questions about the Heavenly Sovereign realm. Along the way, he asked a lot of questions. Although Bao Tutian was ruthless to others, he was very kind to Knight Sorrow. He explained and analyzed everything he knew to Knight Sorrow. He also taught him a lot about formations. The formations in the foggy area were not the same as those in the Eternal Sovereign realm. Knight Sorrow had gained a lot along the way. In the end, he was really grateful to Bao Tutian. "We're here. After passing through the mountain area in front, we'll be in the area controlled by the Lu Tian Academy." After piloting the warship for almost 9 years, Bao Tu earthly supremacy reminded Yi Shang as they passed by a mountain range. Although Knight Sorrow had not cultivated in these years, his realm had stabilized a lot. He had reached the peak of the sovereign realm in all aspects. Hearing Bao Tutian's words, Knight Sorrow came out of seclusion. He stood on the deck of the battleship and looked at the endless mountains in the distance. These mountains looked very tall, but they were different from the clouds in the Eternal Sovereign realm. They were shrouded in black gas, giving off an extremely evil feeling. The battleship entered the mountain range. Knight Sorrow gradually felt his mind being affected, and he had the urge to kill. Moreover, this kind of impulse was gradually becoming uncontrollable. At this moment, if he utilized the energy of virtue, he would definitely be able to resist it. But it was possible. Thus, Knight Sorrow looked at Supreme Bao Tutian and said, "City Lord, why do I feel like I can't control myself?" "Ha! There is no need to panic. It would be a bad thing if you could control yourself." This was the area used to detect spies from the Eternal Supreme World. If a spy from the Eternal Paragon World enters this area, he won't be able to sense any killing intent. Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu explained before he continued. However, this test is useless for heavenly sovereigns. Then, City Lord, since I've passed the test, can you help me resist this murderous aura? Night Demon doesn't like the feeling of being controlled. Night Sorrow said. He didn't want to lose control in this aura. Ha! This City Lord can't help, but you'll get used to it soon. Don't worry, this won't do you any harm. Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu obviously knew what was going on, so he told Night Sorrow to relax. Okay. Yi Shang knew that Prime Bao Tuqian still had to rely on him, so he definitely would not make him unhappy. So he stopped resisting this dark aura. Gradually, the anger in his heart turned into black energy and wrapped around his body. Surrounded by this black energy, Night Sorrow felt that his whole body was full of power. However, there was still a violent emotion in his heart, and he was only a step away from losing control. Seeing Night Sorrow gradually calming down, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu said, "Don't be afraid, there will be a selection of the Heaven Slayer Academy later. The Academy won't let all of you lose control and become tools that only know how to kill. They just want to make you more excited." I know. After replying, Night Sorrow began to get used to this feeling. At the same time, he felt somewhat lucky. He guessed that if he hadn't absorbed the dark aura of the ancient coffin, he would have been detected. Then, in a state of excitement, Night Sorrow followed Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu to the city built for the selection of the Heaven Slayer Academy. Mang Mountain City. After entering the city, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu looked at the date and confirmed that there was still about a year before the selection officially began. Thus, he brought Yi Shang and found an inn to stay in. Originally, Night Sorrow wanted to cultivate in the inn, but Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu thought that he should take him to register first and inquire about the news at the same time. So, he took Night Sorrow to the center of Mang Mountain City to register together. After asking around, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu panicked immediately. As of today, more than 100,000 people had registered for the competition, and none of them was below the earthly sovereign level. It seems that the number of people who will register in the end will be at least 200,000 to 300,000. This won't do. No matter what, I have to help you become an earthly sovereign as soon as possible. Otherwise, not to mention the results, I will become a laughing stock first. After returning to the inn from the registration area, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu thought about how to help Night Sorrow become an earthly sovereign within a year. This was because it concerned his and Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu's reputation. If there were many earthly sovereigns participating in the competition, it would be fine. However, among all of them, only Night Sorrow was an earthly sovereign, which would be very embarrassing for him. City Governor, if anyone laughs at us, let them laugh first. Night Demon will fight back with his strength. Night Sorrow knew what Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu was thinking, so he comforted him. He had absolute confidence in his own strength. Hearing this, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu said, "No. Humans need their dignity, just like trees need their bark. I can't stand those people laughing at me. I will think of a way to get an earth spirit flower for you. I will let you become an earthly sovereign immediately." City Governor, the earth spirit flower is hard to come by. I think we should forget about it. Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu was more anxious than Night Sorrow to help him break through. Night Sorrow felt a little awkward. However, he did not persuade Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu at all. After Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu said that, he went out to look for information about the Earth Spirit Flower. However, he did not get any information for 3 months. On a certain day after 3 months, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu was teaching Night Sorrow about arrays. A cultivator with a sinister face suddenly brought a few people to the courtyard that they rented. He sneered and said, Bao Tuesday. This time, you've really shown off your brilliance. You actually brought a half-step earthly sovereign to participate in the selection competition of Lu Tian Academy. Are you looking down on Luteon Academy or the heroes of the world? Stealing incense. Chapter 31:28. Knight Sorrow immediately used the sea serpent's eye to look over. The one who spoke was a cultivator who looked sinister but actually had the face of a rat. He had a pointy mouth and monkey cheeks. Before Supremacy Bao Tuqian could speak, Knight Sorrow said coldly, "Where did this rat come from?" This sentence was just a normal reprimand to an ordinary person. However, Supremacy Enling was a rat that had cultivated into a demon and then transformed into a human. He hated this sentence very much. As soon as Yi Shang finished speaking, he flew into a rage. He sneered, "You're the Supremacy contestant Bao Tuqian brought here. You're not that strong, but you're very arrogant. Believe it or not, I'll kill you immediately. If you have the ability to kill me directly, you would have done it long ago. Why are you still talking nonsense?" Knight Sorrow said to Supremacy Enling in disdain. Supremacy Bao Tuqian immediately laughed out loud and said, "Haha. That's right. He wouldn't dare to make a move on Luteon Academy's territory even if he had the guts of a rat." Then, he looked at Supremacy Enling in disdain. Supremacy Enling was naturally embarrassed to be looked down upon by Knight Sorrow and Bao Tuqian. At this moment, he summoned Luan Xinwu, who had betrayed Bao Tuqian's city, and said, "Come. Say something to Supremacy Bao Tuqian." "Yes. Lord Enling." After Luan Xinwu was summoned, he looked at Supremacy Bao Tuqian playfully and said, "Bao Tuqian, it's not that I want to criticize you. Even if I, Luan Xinwu, give up on Bao Tuqian's city, you can still find an earthly supremacy to participate in the competition, right? As a cultivator from Bao Tuqian's city, I feel embarrassed because of this. How about this? Kneel down and kowtow to me 9 times, then I, Luan Xinwu, will continue to represent Bao Tuqian's city in the competition." "How dare you? Who do you think you are? How dare you bark at me here? My Bao Tuqian city has a goal. How can an ant like you join it so casually?" After Luan Xinwu finished speaking, Supremacy Bao Tuqian scolded him in disdain. Hearing this, Luan Xinwu sneered and said, "Deceiving oneself and others is indeed useful sometimes. At least it can numb yourself. What can an ant like you understand? Do you think you can reach the top just because you joined Enling? You're just a dog in another place. If you have 1% of Night Demon, you won't be like this." Initially, Prime Bao Tuqian was furious. However, Yi Shang comforted him with a voice transmission. Luan Xinwu's Luan Xinwu disdain. To Supremes, Bao Tuqian City, Luan Xinwu Luan become a supremacy Luan supremacy. Luo Tuqian City Bao Tuqian was Luan Luan supremacy. He was so excited that he could not control his emotions in such an environment created by the Killer Heaven Academy. Luan Tuqian Luo Lu. Luan Luster the Luqian City Luster Luo. Lut Bao Luan. Lude. Luan. Then, he said, "I, the Night Demon, challenge you to a life and death challenge. According to the rules of the Killer Heaven Academy. Is Tuqian. Let's go. Let's go to the city center." "Wow. You're just a supremacy. Aren't you afraid of death?" Luan Xinwu's face immediately revealed an impudent smile when he heard Yi Shan's challenge. Supremacy Enling looked at Supremacy Bao Tuqian and mocked, "Your subordinate seems to be more excited than you." "Excited? What's there to be excited about? What's there to be excited about? Who doesn't have thousands of lives on their hands?" Heavenly Supreme Bao Tu said indifferently after Heavenly Supreme Dark Hill finished speaking. When Knight Sorrow challenged Luan Xinwu, he had sent a message to Luan Xinwu. After confirming that Luan Xinwu was confident, he was relieved. "Ha! You're just comforting yourselves. Let's see how you're going to find another contestant after Night Demon is killed." Luan Xinwu released his aura and said, with Lord Enling's help, I've become a half-step heavenly supremacy. Do you think a half-step earthly supremacy can defeat a half-step heavenly supremacy? With your character, you're no match for Night Demon even if you're a half-step supreme realm. Supremacy Bao Tutian said disdainfully after Luan Xinwu finished speaking. At the same time, he sent a message to Night Sorrow. Night Demon, his strength has increased. Are you still confident? If not, we'll give up the challenge. Even if it's embarrassing, it's better than being killed. Don't worry. Although he has become a half-step heavenly supremacy, his realm is not stable. He's not much stronger than an ordinary upper earthly supremacy. He's no match for me. Night Sorrow said with certainty. Luan Xinwu and Supremacy Enling said, let's go. Let's go to the Ring of Life and Death in the city center. Since you're in such a hurry to die, we'll fulfill your wish. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Supremacy Enling looked at Luan Xinwu and said, let's end this battle. Don't worry, Lord. He can kill supremacies like slaughtering chickens and rabbits. Let's kill him quickly and study the other opponents. This time, we'll strive to enter the top 10,000 and win glory for Anling City. After Luan Xinwu finished speaking, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, let's go. Follow me to meet your death. Pathetic. Until now, you still can't see your own fate. Night Sorrow mocked and flew toward the arena of life and death in the city with Supremacy Bao Tutian. Supremacy Enling and Luan Xinwu followed behind. However, when they arrived at the arena of life and death, they realized that they had to line up. They were arranged for the 22nd battle because there were too many cultivators who had conflicts in their excitement. In the center of the city, there was only one arena of life and death. You can live a little longer and watch a few more battles between earthly supremacies. Seeing that they had to line up, Luan Xinwu looked at Night Sorrow coldly. Hearing this, Night Sorrow smiled and shook his head. Soon, you'll know how ignorant you are. After he finished speaking, Yi Shang no longer paid any attention to the chattering Luan Xinwu. He watched the battles in the arena of life and death with Supremacy Bao Tutian. The first battle had successfully attracted everyone's attention. The two opponents were actually two heavenly supremacies. The probability of two heavenly supremacies entering the arena of life and death was very low. The two opponents were called Heavenly Supremacy Qinghu and Heavenly Supremacy Qinghu. Their names were very similar. It was also because of their names that they gradually had conflicts. It was also strange. After entering the arena, the two sides did not say anything and directly attacked. After they attacked, Night Sorrow opened the Sea Serpent's eye and could barely see some of the tracks. As for the other earthly supremacies present, they could not see anything clearly. Chapter 31-29. Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu and Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu. They were Qinghu and Qinghu, respectively. They were ferocious in battle, but they remained in their human forms. They did not transform into Qinghu and Qinghu. However, although they were in their human forms, their fighting style still maintained the primitive bestial nature of demonic beasts. When they fought, they were quite cold and bloodthirsty. Night Sorrow used the eye of the sea serpent to watch for a while. He had a better understanding of the battle between the heavenly sovereigns. At the same time, his understanding of the heavenly sovereigns also improved. He vaguely felt that he was getting closer and closer to becoming an earthly sovereign. It was as if he could see the window paper, and he was only one step away from breaking it. Very good. I have gained a lot from watching this battle. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow became more and more fascinated as he watched. In the end, he was completely immersed in it. He even almost comprehended a unique skill. After the battle between the two heavenly sovereigns ended, Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu flew out of the arena as the winner. Knight Sorrow looked at Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu and said, "The battle between Heavenly Sovereigns is indeed different. In terms of rhythm, we can't keep up. Therefore, no matter what, we are no match for them." Haha. Even I can't see the battle between the two Heavenly Sovereigns clearly. Why are you pretending? You are even commenting. What a joke. Hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Wan Xinwu mocked him before Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tu could say anything. As far as he was concerned, Yi Shan was simply playing to the gallery. Knight Sorrow smiled and looked at Wan Xinwu. "You are a frog at the bottom of the well. How dare you talk about the sun and moon? You can't understand it, but it doesn't mean others can't. Fine. You are stubborn. Anyway, you won't be able to get out of the arena when you are in it." Wan Xinwu looked at Knight Sorrow with disdain. He felt as if he was looking at a dead man. Knight Sorrow couldn't be bothered with him. To him, Wan Xinwu was the real dead man. At this time, Bao Tu looked at Knight Sorrow and said, "Night Demon, can you really see the battle between the two Heavenly Sovereigns clearly?" "I can't see it clearly, but I can vaguely see some of its tracks." Knight Sorrow replied honestly, before he continued, "But just looking at these tracks, I feel like I've benefited a lot, and I can vaguely feel like I'm about to become an earthly sovereign. Thank you so much, Heavenly Sovereigns." "Alright. Very good." Upon hearing that Knight Sorrow was about to become an earthly sovereign, Supremacy Bao Tutian nodded with satisfaction. At this moment, Heavenly Sovereign Dark Hai and Wan Xinwu had looks of disdain on their faces. They felt that Knight Sorrow was simply bragging without thinking. At that moment, Heavenly Sovereign Green Fox, who had been about to leave the stage, suddenly stopped. Suddenly, he stopped and looked at Knight Sorrow. "I just realized that you can see something. Interesting. I'll give you this tiger skin." As he spoke, he tossed Sky Supremacy Qinghu's skin to Knight Sorrow. "Hurry up and thank Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu." A Heavenly Supreme level tiger skin could be refined into a decent defensive armor. It was a rare treasure for an earthly sovereign. Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu had given it to him. Supremacy Bao Tutian immediately asked Knight Sorrow to express his gratitude. At this moment, Knight Sorrow tossed the tiger skin back and said, "Thank you, Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu. However, I can't accept your gift without doing anything." You are indeed an interesting little fellow." Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu smiled as he received Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu's skin. Then, he left. "Knight Sorrow, why didn't you accept the tiger skin? That is a Heavenly Sovereign skin. It can be refined into something good." After Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu left, Supremacy Bao Tutian said regretfully, "City Lord. There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu just wanted to prove that what I said was true and that he could see some traces of the battle. He didn't really want to give me the tiger skin. If I was greedy and accepted the tiger skin, I would definitely get into big trouble. Do you think that Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu, who fought with other Heavenly Sovereigns because of his name, would be so generous as to give away a Heavenly Sovereign skin for no reason?" Knight Sorrow transmitted his voice to Supremacy Bao Tutian. "Impressive. Your temperament is really good." After hearing Knight Sorrow's analysis, Supremacy Bao Tutian was enlightened. Then, he said, "Perhaps your future achievements will be greater than mine." "City Lord, you flatter me," Knight Sorrow said and looked at Wan Xinwu. At this moment, Wan Xinwu was a little speechless. Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu had already said that Knight Sorrow could see some traces of the battle. This made him act like a fool. When he saw Knight Sorrow looking at him, he gritted his teeth and said murderously, "Let's meet in the arena." "Okay. Let's meet in the arena." Yi Shuang didn't continue to say anything else since he was in the right. Instead, he watched the subsequent battles in peace. After watching the battle between the heavenly sovereigns, Knight Sorrow felt that there was nothing to learn from watching the battle between the earthly sovereigns. The things that he could absorb were basically negligible. In the end, he simply closed his eyes and rested, waiting for his battle to begin. Finally, after 3 days, the opportunity to enter the arena came. After flying into the life and death arena, Knight Sorrow looked at Wan Xinwu, who was already in the arena. At this moment, Wan Xinwu's expression was solemn, and he was no longer as arrogant as he was a few days ago. His temperament is not as bad as he looks. Knight Sorrow muttered to himself after seeing Wan Xinwu's performance. Wan Xinwu was obviously arrogant and rude before the battle, but he was very serious when it came to the battle. Die! At the same time that Yi Shang looked over, Wan Xinwu suddenly threw a punch. He seemed to have only thrown one punch. However, thousands of fist prints appeared in the void. These fist prints were all made of primordial qi. Because of the special aura in the fog, they were all black. It looks very strong, but it actually doesn't have much attack power. To sum it up, it's just gaudy. Knight Sorrow used the sea serpent's eye to see through the trajectory of the punch. Then, he suddenly threw a punch. Knight Sorrow did not make any changes to this punch. It was just a simple punch, but the power it contained was definitely much more powerful than the thousands of punches that Wan Xinwu had thrown out. Remember, this is called the essence of the punch, not the quantity. With a loud roar, Yi Shan used a simple, unadorned punch to shatter Wan Xinwu's fist shadows. Then, he threw a punch at Wan Xinwu's chest. Boom! After being hit by this punch, Wan Xinwu immediately flew out and crashed into the protective shield of the arena. Good! Night Demon, you really did not disappoint me. Kill him. Seeing that Knight Sorrow had sent Wan Xinwu flying with one punch, Sovereign Bao Tutian roared and started to think about how he could help Knight Sorrow become an earthly sovereign quickly. Knight Sorrow had not become an earthly sovereign yet, but he was already in such a battle. If he could help him become an earthly sovereign, there might be an unexpected surprise. Clan M. Chapter 3130. In Bao Tutian's opinion, this kind of investment should be a sure win. But at this time, he muttered to himself, that's not right. He has the strength to fight a top earthly sovereign now. If he wants to become an earthly sovereign, what he needs is not the earthly spirit flower, but the heavenly spirit flower. The heavenly spirit flower is a priceless treasure. Where can I get it? After thinking for a while, Bao Tutian felt that there was not much he could do to help Knight Sorrow. After all, he was not a rich heavenly sovereign. I've said that you are no match for him. In the short period when Bao Tutian was distracted, Knight Sorrow had successfully suppressed Wan Xinwu with his advantage. At first, Wan Xinwu felt humiliated when he was suppressed by Knight Sorrow. In his opinion, he should be able to defeat his opponent easily. But after fighting for a while, he suddenly realized that he could not suppress Knight Sorrow in any way. He started to panic and realized that he might be the one to die in the arena of life and death today. After thinking for a while, Wan Xinwu felt that he should not be careless anymore. He thought to himself, compared to my life, face is not important at all. I have to use the mentality of the weak to fight against the strong and start to defend patiently, waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. He realized that Wan Xinwu had stopped underestimating him. Knight Sorrow also started to take it seriously. He sneered, it's too late for you to take it seriously now. This is called being defeated like a landslide. After shouting, Knight Sorrow used the Qingxian godly spear technique and attacked Wan Xinwu crazily. For a while, Wan Xinwu was suppressed very passively. He could only defend himself and could not fight back. This heavenly sovereign is not simple. He can actually force a half-step heavenly sovereign to such a state. Yes. He can suppress his opponent who is so many small realms above him. This kind of talent is highly valued by the Lu Tian Academy. Maybe he can be selected. Some of the spectators started to discuss the process of Night Sorrow suppressing Wan Xinwu. Hearing these discussions, Bao Tutian looked at Heavenly Sovereign and Ling proudly and said, "The genius that you have painstakingly poached and nurtured doesn't look like much." Humph. Heavenly Supreme Dark Ling, who had been mocked, simply couldn't think of any words to refute. He transmitted his voice to Wan Xinwu. "Why is it so difficult to deal with a half-step earthly sovereign? Could it be that you want this city lord to become everyone's laughingstock?" Back then when he poached Wan Xinwu over, Ling had put in a lot of capital. His goal was to embarrass supremacy Bao Tutian, who had a grudge against him. However, he did not expect that his face would be slapped so hard before the Killer Heaven Academy's qualifier even started. Reporting to the city lord, "This night demon is indeed not simple." It was not something that an ordinary earthly sovereign could fight against. This subordinate has already done his best. Wan Xinwu replied helplessly. As the battle progressed, he had already used all his skills, but he was still no match for Night Sorrow. "Since I'm no match for him, I'll self-detonate and kill him. This city lord will think of a way to help you reincarnate. It's better than your soul being destroyed." Heavenly Supreme and Ling said viciously. "Yes, milord." Hearing Heavenly Supreme and Ling's words, Wan Xinwu felt that it made sense. If he was killed in the arena, then it would definitely be the end of his divine sense being destroyed. However, if he self-detonated, both sides would be injured. Even if he died, he would still have a chance to be reincarnated. After a slight hesitation, he was ready to self-detonate. He began to look for an opportunity in the battle. Coincidentally, not long after the battle, Night Sorrow used the Divine Essence trapping array and began to suppress him in close combat. At this time, Wan Xinwu's face revealed a ghostly smile, and he suddenly chose to self-detonate. Buzz! Although Wan Xinwu had just advanced to half-step Heavenly Supreme, the power of his self-detonation was still very terrifying. Night Sorrow, who had not expected Wan Xinwu to be so decisive in choosing to self-detonate, did not dodge the attack. He was instantly sent flying and crashed into the energy shield. After a while, he finally managed to get up. After checking his body, Night Sorrow found that there was nothing wrong with him. This was all thanks to the recent increase in his physical strength. If it were in the past, even if he did not die, he would have been seriously injured. He looked at Wan Xinwu, who had been completely shattered, leaving only a trace of his soul floating in the void. Night Sorrow thought to himself, "It's all thanks to the experience in the Demon Fall battlefield. And I've advanced to peak Heavenly Supreme. Otherwise, it would have been really unbearable." Then, he held Wan Xinwu's soul in his hand and sneered, "Good plan. However, as I said, the one who will die is you. Let me go, please let me go. I'll submit to you." Seeing that Night Sorrow was about to kill him in the arena, Wan Xinwu lost his dignity. He begged for mercy in front of everyone. Hearing this, Bao Tutian, who was below the stage, immediately shouted, "There's no need to keep such a slave of 3 surnames alive. Just kill him." Okay. Night Sorrow also felt that there was no need to keep Wan Xinwu alive. With a wave of his hand, he would kill him directly. "Night Demon, you're very good. However, do you think you can get away with offending me, Ling? Stop dreaming." When Night Sorrow flew down from the life and death arena, Ling looked at him coldly and said, "You better pray that no one from Ling City will meet you in the selection. Otherwise, you'll definitely die. Wan Xinwu thought the same as you. Now, his soul is destroyed." Night Sorrow looked at Ling and said coldly, "Now that you've said this, I think your ending will be the same as his. Bastard! You're just an ant. How dare you threaten me?" Ling had always thought that Heavenly Supremes were superior. Now that he was despised by Night Sorrow, he immediately flew into a rage. So what if I'm threatening you? At this time, Bao Tutian stood in front of Night Sorrow and said, Enling, let me tell you, what the Night Demon said is what I said. Sooner or later, we'll kill you. We'll destroy your soul. Okay. I'll wait for you. When we return, we'll launch a siege. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Enling, who was completely enraged, roared coldly. He was prepared to launch a war between Enling City and Bao Tutian City when he returned. Upon hearing this, Bao Tutian smiled and said, Come on, I'm not afraid of you. I'm just afraid that Night Sorrow will be chosen by Lu Tian Academy and you won't dare to send your troops. Humph. He'll be chosen by Lu Tian Academy. Dream on. Enling said disdainfully after hearing Bao Tutian's words. Then he added, If this ant can be chosen by Lu Tian Academy, I'll kill myself in front of you. If he can't be chosen, you, Bao Tutian, will kneel on the ground and kowtow to me 1,000 times. Do you dare to accept this bet? In his opinion, Night Sorrow had no chance of being chosen by Lu Tian Academy. Clan M. Chapter 31-31. Since it was impossible for Yi Shang to be chosen by the Killer Heaven Academy, he, Tian Supreme Enling, would definitely win this bet. If Supremacy Bao Tutian agreed, then he would definitely lose. If he didn't agree, then he would lose face. In Enling's opinion, this was killing two birds with one stone. He wouldn't lose no matter what. Youth, Supremacy Bao Tutian was speechless when he heard this. What he thought was similar to Supremacy Enling's. Although Night Sorrow looked very outstanding, he should still be a distance away from the top 10. It would be difficult for him to be selected by Lu Tian Academy. If he agreed rashly, he might lose face. For a moment, he really didn't know how to respond. At this moment, Night Sorrow, who saw through Supremacy Bao Tutian's thoughts, transmitted his voice to him, City Lord, don't worry and agree to it. I should be able to advance to Earth Supremacy soon. By then I will have the strength to enter the top 10. And from the discussion of the audience just now, I heard that Lu Tian Academy not only values strength, but also potential. Night Demon's potential should be worthy of their attention. This. Night Demon, are you really confident? Supremacy Bao Tutian asked doubtfully when he heard this. As the governor of a small city at the border, he had never thought that there would be a talent selected by the Killer Heaven Academy in his city. At this moment, he was a little stunned. I can't say that I'm absolutely confident. After all, Lu Tian Academy has their own way of thinking, but I should not be weaker than others. Night Sorrow transmitted his voice confidently. He didn't say these words in public. All right. I'll believe you this time. If you succeed, I will benefit from it too. If you fail, we'll just kill Enling. Supremacy Bao Tutian transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. He looked at Supremacy Enling and said, Okay. I agree to the bet. Ha ha ha. Good. Then let's make a heavenly oath. Heavenly Supreme Enling laughed loudly as he swore an oath. Supremacy Bao Tutian thought for a moment and also made a heavenly oath. Then, Supremacy Bao Tutian and Night Sorrow returned to the inn together. After arriving at the inn, Supremacy Bao Tutian kept thinking about the bet. He let Night Sorrow cultivate in the inn while he went out to look for the heavenly spirit flower or other treasures that could help Night Sorrow. Yi Shang was more or less grateful for this. But after Supremacy Bao Tutian left, he entered the inn's secret room. He set up a formation. Then he started to cultivate. Time was of the essence. He hoped to use the heavenly spirit flower to break through to the earthly sovereign realm. Otherwise, it would be too conspicuous for him to remain in the Jizuan realm. If he got too much attention, he would be exposed was eternal supremacy's world. After setup was the heavenly spirit flowers, Night Sorrow took the flower directly. There was a fragrance as heavenly spirit. After taking it, Yi Shang's mouth still had a lingering fragrance. Was. After consuming the heavenly spirit flower, he immediately felt the bottleneck of the earthly sovereign level being broken. Without wasting much effort, he had directly advanced to the level of earthly sovereign. But at this moment, because he had completely released his energy, the aura around Yi Shang's body couldn't be concealed by the fog. In this case, he re-entered the space where the ancient coffin was and started to absorb the dark aura around the ancient coffin. He restored his aura to its dark state. Then, he flew out of the city to fight against the Thunder Tribulation energy clone. In about 2 days, Night Sorrow successfully defeated the Thunder Tribulation energy clone and became an earthly supremacy. He checked his aura and found nothing wrong with it. Night Sorrow returned to the city. Supremacy Bao Tuqian still had not returned. Yi Shan and his 4 subordinates greeted each other. He asked them to send a voice transmission to Supremacy Bao Tuqian to tell him that he had advanced to heavenly supremacy. Then, he was ready to enter the state of cultivation again. He was going to deduce some secret techniques. But after the subordinates sent him a voice transmission, they found out that he had obtained the heavenly spirit flower and was rushing back from outside the city. How did he get it? If I had known, I wouldn't have used my own heavenly spirit flower. Yi Shang said regretfully when he received the news. At this time, the chaotic heavenly crystal beast, who was still recuperating in the space abode, immediately sent a voice transmission. If you don't need it, you can give it to me. Wait until I advance to peak earthly supremacy. Then, I can use it to advance to heavenly supremacy. Okay. I'll find a way to get it for you. Night Sorrow replied to the chaotic heavenly crystal beast, and then personally sent a voice transmission to Supremacy Bao Tuqian. He told him that if he got the heavenly spirit flower, he would most likely advance to middle earthly supremacy. Supremacy Bao Tuqian was overjoyed. He thought to himself, Night Demon can defeat a half-step heavenly supremacy at the supremacy stage. If I advance to middle earthly supremacy, then I can fight with a heavenly supremacy. While thinking, he replied to Night Sorrow, Night Demon, don't worry. I will definitely bring the heavenly spirit flower back for you. Thank you, Supremacy Bao Tuqian. Night Sorrow said gratefully. This Bao Tuqian is quite generous. However, at this moment, he heard Supremacy Bao Tuqian's voice transmission. Night Demon. It's over. I've been ambushed. I'm afraid I won't be able to return to the city. What? The city governor has been ambushed. How many opponents are there? What are their cultivation levels? Night Sorrow heard this and quickly asked. If Bao Tuqian was killed at this juncture, the heavenly spirit flower would be taken away, and it would be hard to say whether he could continue to participate in the selection. This was something Night Sorrow could not accept. Enrich and another heavenly supremacy are waiting for me. I'm no match for the 2 of them. And I don't have the advantage in speed. I might die. After Enrich is done with me, he will definitely attack you. You'd better run. Bao Tuqian was being suppressed by 2 heavenly supremacies, but he did not forget to send a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. Upon hearing his words, Night Sorrow continued to send a voice transmission. Tell me where you are fighting. I might be able to help. He felt that now that he had advanced to the level of earthly supremacy, he might be able to fight against a heavenly supremacy. After all, the resources that he consumed were all from a higher cultivation level. Ordinary people used the heavenly spirit flower to advance to the level of heavenly supremacy, but he had only advanced to the level of earthly supremacy. I'm not telling you the location because I'm afraid you'll come. It's useless. Run. Although you have advanced to the level of earthly supremacy, you're definitely no match for a heavenly supremacy. Give up. Bao Tuqian continued to send a voice transmission. Cut the crap. Tell me the location. I'll go there immediately. Don't underestimate me. Knight Sorrow had been in a state of excitement in the city. When Supremacy Bao Tuqian did not tell him the location, he immediately flew into a rage. Sigh. All right. I'm 1,000,000 miles northwest of the city. Knight Sorrow flew into a rage. Supremacy Bao Tuqian, on the other hand, was very pleased. He thought that he could only try his best at this point. Hence, he told him where he was. Clan M. Chapter 31-32. After Knight Sorrow learned from Sovereign Bao Tuqian where he was being attacked, he immediately flew out of the city. 1,000,000 miles was not far for earthly sovereigns and heavenly sovereigns. Knight Sorrow did not take long to reach the place where they were fighting. At this time, Sovereign Bao Tuqian could not hold on any longer and had lost the ability to resist. He was being ravaged by Sovereign and Ling. If it were not for Sovereign and Ling's deep resentment towards Sovereign Bao Tuqian, he would have killed him long ago. He would not have lasted until now. And you are here. Good, good. Today, I will kill both of you. Heavenly Supreme Anling, who was fighting Heavenly Supreme Bao Tu, smiled in surprise when he saw Yi Shang arrive. On the other hand, Sovereign Bao Tuqian had a complicated expression on his face. It was impossible for him not to be moved by Knight Sorrow's appearance, but on the other hand, he felt that Knight Sorrow was just here to die. This was because heavenly sovereigns were superior existences. No matter how outstanding Knight Sorrow was, he was only a lower earthly sovereign. The gap between them was huge. He thought to himself, why bother? At this time, he did not see any hope at all. After Knight Sorrow appeared, he looked at Sovereign and Ling and said, since we have a bet previously, let's make a bet. How about another bet? Bet? What ability do you have to bet with me? After Yi Shang spoke, Sky Supremacy and Ling looked at him coldly. The other heavenly sovereign beside and Ling crossed his arms and looked like he was watching a show. After all, Sovereign Bao Tuqian had no combat power at this time. Knight Sorrow was only a lower earthly sovereign, so he was not strong enough. I bet that you can't hurt me within 100 moves. If I win, you let Sovereign Bao Tuqian go today. If you win, Sovereign Bao Tuqian and I will serve you forever. Do you dare to bet? After saying that, Yi Shang continued, do you want a dead heavenly sovereign, or do you want a living heavenly sovereign servant? Think about it yourself. Oh. This bet is interesting. The masked heavenly sovereign, who was standing beside Sovereign and Ling, immediately said with interest, I think you can bet on it. An earthly sovereign is still okay, but a heavenly sovereign slave is hard to come by. Our forces are like tigers that have grown wings. Upon hearing that, Sovereign and Ling smiled and said, I have to admit that this bet is very tempting. I have never thought of making my old rival Bao Tuqian to serve me. Now, his dream was about to come true. How can I refuse such a bet? After saying that, Heavenly Supremacy and Ling turned to Heavenly Supremacy Bao Tu and asked, the question now is, Bao Tu, do you agree to this bet? This bet. At Sovereign Bao Tuqian was the heavenly sovereign. Originally, he didn't have much hope of surviving. Hearing this bet, he was very nervous. He transmitted his voice to Knight Sorrow, Night Demon, do you have the confidence to fight him, or is this a stalling tactic? With his pride, it was impossible for him to submit to Sky's Sovereign and Ling. To him, it would be better to have his divine soul destroyed than to do that. This is a stalling tactic, but I have a chance to defend against his attack. I have a trump card. He should be unable to break through my defense. However, I don't know what will happen if I use it. Now that things have come to this, I have no choice but to use it. Knight Sorrow said. He was almost 100% sure that he could defend against Sovereign and Ling. However, he might not be able to control the situation. In order to enter Lu Tian Academy, he had to save Sovereign Bao Tutian. He also wanted to protect the Heavenly Spirit Flower for the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast. After hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Sovereign Bao Tutian pondered for a moment and said, "How many chances can there be in life? Night Devil, I believe in you." All right. City Lord, let's take a gamble. Let's see what will happen. No matter what, we can't let Ling win. Knight Sorrow said firmly. Although he was transmitting his voice, his tone was impassioned. Yes. We won't let him have an easy time. Sovereign Bao Tutian replied to Knight Sorrow, then looked at Sovereign and Ling and said, "I agree to this bet. And I'm willing to swear a heavenly Tao oath." After saying that, Sovereign Bao Tutian began to swear a heavenly Tao oath. Ha ha ha. Good, very good. I, and Ling, am happy to have 2 more servants. After Sovereign and Ling finished speaking, he began to swear a heavenly Tao oath. After he finished, he looked at Knight Sorrow and said, "Aunt, it's your turn. Swear a heavenly Tao oath, and we'll start the battle immediately." All right. I, Night Devil. Knight Sorrow did not hesitate and swore a heavenly Tao oath. He looked at the other party and said, "Go ahead. Let me see what kind of strength the Heavenly Sovereign has." As he spoke, he was recalling the battle between Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu and Heavenly Sovereign Qinghu. He could not see clearly that kind of speed before he advanced to Earth Sovereign. But now that he recalled it, he could more or less see it. He did not want to use his trump card right away. He wanted to test his true strength and see if he could fight a lower Heavenly Sovereign like an Ling. Haha. An ant is more arrogant than a dragon or a phoenix. I'll destroy your confidence now. Heavenly Supreme and Ling roared and sent a palm strike at Yishang. In his opinion, if he used his full strength, it was very likely that he would kill Knight Sorrow. Therefore, he only used 30% of his strength. So weak. He shouldn't have used his full strength. Knight Sorrow, who had already activated the 33 Heavens Battle Secret Technique, observed with the Sea Serpent's eye and found that Sovereign and Ling's attack did not seem very strong. He did not use any secret technique at all, just a slap. Boom! After the 2 of them clashed, Knight Sorrow, who had used about 70% of his strength, fought to a draw with Sovereign and Ling. This ant's strength is not bad. No wonder he dares to boast about fighting with you. Seeing that Sovereign and Ling and Knight Sorrow had fought to a draw, the masked Heavenly Sovereign at the side suddenly became interested. It is indeed interesting. Although I have only used 30% of my strength, it is already very good for a lower earthly sovereign to be able to take this attack. Sovereign and Ling was not upset that his attack had been blocked. Instead, he said excitedly, "If such a servant is nurtured to the level of a heavenly sovereign, his future will be limitless. It will definitely be a good thing for our forces." Yes. Take him down immediately. The masked heavenly sovereign nodded in agreement. Don't worry. I can feel that he doesn't have much strength left. Sovereign and Ling said. He then used 70% of his strength and slapped again. He judged that this was already beyond Knight Sorrow's limit. He did not want to use too much strength and kill Knight Sorrow directly. You are thinking too much. Knight Sorrow, who had seen through his opponent's thoughts, took out his golden heavenly halberd and used all his strength to attack with the divine spear. Clan M. Chapter 31-33. The Godly Spear Technique was not as powerful as the Qingxian Godly Spear Technique, but the latter was a combination technique, so it was not suitable to use it here. Boom! Night Sorrow used the godly spear technique and clashed with Heavenly Sovereign and Ling's palm wind. He was directly blasted away. However, he quickly stood up without any injuries. Although there was a huge gap in strength between them, Night Sorrow's body had improved a lot through the tempering in the Demon Fall battlefield. After advancing to the Earth's sovereign level, there was not much difference between him and ordinary heavenly sovereigns. Compared to the gap in strength, Night Sorrow's body was not much weaker than Heavenly Sovereign and Ling's. Night Demon, are you okay? Although Night Sorrow knew that he was fine, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian did not know. After the two finished exchanging blows, he asked with concern. Night Sorrow's battle concerned their fates, so Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian was completely on his side. Be careful, City Lord. I'm fine. However, if he uses his ultimate technique, I'll have to use that thing. Night Sorrow said, then looked at Heavenly Sovereign and Ling and said, there's still a long way to go before 100 moves. Let's continue. Not bad. You took a move with 80% of my strength and didn't suffer any injuries. If nothing goes wrong, you'll be selected by Lu Tian Academy. To have a servant like you, I'll definitely have a huge amount of resources in the future. Heavenly Sovereign and Ling laughed and said, next, I'll use my full strength and ultimate technique. If you can't take it, surrender quickly. Otherwise, I'll kill you directly. After saying that, Heavenly Sovereign and Ling used an ordinary ultimate technique on Night Sorrow. Dark Soul Palm. This was the ultimate technique that Heavenly Sovereign and Ling used when he had just advanced to the Heavenly Sovereign level. Its power was relatively weak, and he had not used it for a long time. Now that he used it, he was a little rusty, and its power was ordinary. However, Night Sorrow did not dare to be careless in the face of a Heavenly Sovereign's ultimate technique. He knew that he would only be seriously injured and would not be killed if he took it head-on. However, there was no need. Because what they agreed upon was not 3 moves, but 100. I'll let you have a taste of how it feels to attack it. When Sky Sovereign Dark Ling's attack approached, Night Sorrow suddenly summoned the ancient coffin in the space, blocking in front of him. The moment the ancient coffin was summoned, it immediately released an endless aura of darkness. The dark aura was so dense that it seemed to have come from the abyss of hell, causing fear to rise in people's hearts. Sky Sovereign and Ling's attack landed on the black chi surrounding the ancient coffin, but it didn't cause any damage. Seeing Ling's attack being neutralized so easily by the ancient coffin, Zhang Xian's eyes widened. Ling couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. After a brief investigation, he was certain that this ancient coffin wasn't something he could fight against. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. He transmitted his voice to the masked Heavenly Sovereign beside him. What is this ancient coffin? Why do I feel like I'm trembling? I don't want to attack him at all. I'm not sure either, but it's definitely not simple. We are all Heavenly Sovereigns, but when we face this ancient coffin, our hearts tremble. If I'm not wrong, it's very likely that a Lammeter from a certain era is buried here. The masked Heavenly Sovereign guessed, but he had no idea. Indeed. When Heavenly Sovereign and Ling heard this, he continued, tell me. Could this night demon in front of us have obtained the inheritance of a Lammeter? Is that why he's so strong? As an earthly sovereign, he can take the attack of a heavenly sovereign head-on. It's possible. I think with the strength that he has displayed, it's not impossible for him to defeat a heavenly sovereign who has just advanced. This is a talent that can't be found in the entire fog zone. Today's matter is going to be tricky. The masked heavenly sovereign said slowly with a frown on his face. While they were conversing, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. Night Demon. This ancient coffin gives off an extremely dangerous feeling. It's not very good for you to bring it with you and summon it to fight against the enemy, right? Or do you have some connection with this ancient coffin? Aren't you afraid of the backlash? When he said this, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian recalled some of the things that Night Sorrow had said back then. He was sure that this was his trump card. Presumably, the sudden increase in the black qi around him was also related to the ancient coffin. There's no connection between me and this ancient coffin. If a high-level existence awakens in it, I'm afraid I'll be killed immediately. But from the looks of it, it's necessary to summon it if we want to solve today's matter. Night Sorrow explained. Then, he continued, after today, I'll think of a way to bury it in a place with good feng shui. It'll be considered as returning the favor to him. Do this as soon as possible. This ancient coffin gives off a very strange feeling. It makes one's heart tremble. You have to give up as soon as possible. Don't be greedy for its power. Most of the people in the fog zone use the energy in the fog zone to cultivate and improve their strength very quickly. However, Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian still reminded Night Sorrow not to use the ancient coffin's power for long periods of time. He was afraid that it would cause karma. Hearing this, Night Sorrow continued to transmit his voice. After today's matter is settled, I'll do this. Good. Let's solve this matter first. If nothing goes wrong, they won't dare to continue attacking. You should be the winner of this bet. Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian said with a smile. You saved my life. It's hard to repay this favor. You and I are brothers in the future. If I have something, there will be something for you, Night Demon. Good. When Night Sorrow heard Bao Tu's words, he looked at Heavenly Sovereign Dark Ling and said, continue attacking. In fact, he knew that Heavenly Sovereign and Ling would not have the courage to attack the ancient coffin. That was the truth. Heavenly Sovereign and Ling pondered for a moment. Then, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, how can I continue attacking when you take out such a thing? You've made a good plan today. I've lost the bet. You can leave now. This was what he had discussed with Heavenly Sovereign and Ling. They could deal with Bao Tuqian and Heavenly Sovereign and Ling at any time, but they could not attack the ancient coffin. You're a straightforward person. Hearing this, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Then, he continued, then we'll be leaving. After saying that, he helped Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian up and flew back to the city. After they returned to the city, they set up a formation to let Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian recover his vitality. After Heavenly Sovereign Bao Tuqian recovered, the two went out of the city again to find a suitable burial place for the ancient coffin. They buried it on a dragon vein. The two returned to the city again and waited for the start of the selection. For the two of them, the selection was very important. Therefore, they were more cautious about it. However, on the night before the preliminaries began, it was already too late. Night Sorrow was depressed. Chapter 31-34. This was because the ancient coffin that he and Prime Bao Tuqian had worked so hard to bury had flown back by itself. He stayed by Yi Shang's side and had no intention of leaving. In the following day, Night Sorrow and Prime Bao Tuqian buried the ancient coffin more than 10 times. But every time, it would fly back by itself. It seemed to have stuck to Night Sorrow. There were only 2 hours left until the start of the selection. Prime Bao Tuqian looked at Night Sorrow helplessly and said, I think it's easier to invite the devil and then to send it away. It's not easy to send it away. The selection is about to start. Why don't you keep it first and let's take part in the selection? That's the only way. We can't bring an ancient coffin to the selection. Night Sorrow sighed speechlessly and tried to keep the ancient coffin. Finally, he kept it in the space again. Then, he went to the competition venue with Prime Bao Tuqian anxiously. When they arrived at the square in the center of the city, they waited patiently with the others for the arrival of the envoys from Lu Tian Academy. The few envoys from Killer Heaven Academy had descended from the sky just as the preliminaries were about to begin. The leader was a young cultivator. He looked arrogant, but he was indeed powerful. He had the strength of a middle heavenly sovereign, which was stronger than many of the people present. Behind him were 4 cultivators who looked like old men. Among the 4 old men, 2 were upper heavenly sovereigns, and the other 2 were middle heavenly sovereigns. However, it was obvious that the young cultivator was the leader. The young cultivator had his hands behind his back. Before he could speak, one of the old men cleared his throat and pointed at the young man, saying, "There are many cultivators participating in the selection. This is Lin Dongqing, the genius disciple who joined Lu Tian Academy in the last selection. When he joined Lu Tian Academy, he was an upper earthly sovereign. Now, he's a middle heavenly sovereign. He's already the first in the last selection." Then, the old man paused and continued, "If you want to join Lu Tian Academy, there are 2 ways. The first way is to choose Lin Dongqing and not lose. The other way is to fight your way into the top 10. At this moment, the challenge began. Those who want to enter Killer Heaven Academy through the first path, please step forward. Humph. After the old man finished speaking, Lin Dongqing floated down from the void and stood in the middle of the ring. He said coldly, "If you want to challenge me, you can come up to the stage immediately. But let me say this first, I will not show any mercy." This was a blatant threat. However, Lin Dongqing was one of the geniuses of Lu Tian Academy. He had the strength of a middle heavenly sovereign. Among the people below, there might be those who did not lose to Lin Dongqing in terms of potential, but in terms of strength, it was indeed very difficult for anyone to fight against him. If Night Sorrow took out that strange ancient coffin, they should be able to fight to a draw. But he felt that there was no need to show off. Besides, the ancient coffin was so strange. If he took it out, it might trigger a backlash or attract the attention of the Rending Heaven Academy. This wasn't good. Therefore, Night Sorrow did not step forward at all. As for the others, although there were a few who were confident in their own strength, they were only eager to give it a try. In the end, they were all persuaded by the people around them. He stood on the stage and waited for a while to make sure that no one came up to the stage. Lin Dongqing looked at the people below the stage arrogantly and said, "A bunch of trash. You don't even have the courage to step forward. You will become trash after you enter Lu Tian Academy. Remember, when you enter the academy in the future, you will all be obedient in front of me, Lin Dongqing." After saying that, he flew back into the void without giving anyone a chance to react. After he left, the cultivators who were preparing to participate in the selection were naturally unhappy. Some of them secretly made a mental note of Lin Dongqing and were prepared to defeat him in the future when they were successful in their cultivation. He just entered Lu Tian Academy a few years earlier. What's there to show off? Night Devil, your talent is much better than his. Don't bear grudges because of some words today. After Lin Dongqing flew into the void, Bao Tutian transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. He was afraid that Lin Dongqing would take it to heart. Generally speaking, cultivators had a Taoist heart. If they were attacked, it was very likely that it would become a knot in their hearts. Bao Tutian was afraid that Night Sorrow would have such a knot in his heart. Moreover, he would not be able to defeat Lin Dongqing in a short time, which would affect his future cultivation. Speaking of which, he had already regarded Night Sorrow as one of his own. Hearing that, Night Sorrow smiled and transmitted his voice to him, "Don't worry. In my eyes, he's nothing. He won't affect me at all." That's good. Because such a person is not worth it. Bao Tutian continued to comfort him. Night Sorrow smiled and said, "With the ancient coffin, I'm confident that I won't be defeated on the stage. I didn't do it because I don't want to be in the limelight, so I don't have any burden in my heart." I'm relieved to hear that. The selection is about to begin, and it will be very cruel. You have to take care of yourself. Heavenly Supreme Bao Tu said in a serious tone before patting Yi Shang's shoulder. Originally, he had only found Night Sorrow to make up the numbers. He did not expect to receive such a pleasant surprise today. He was very much looking forward to Night Sorrow's results, but he did not say it out loud. I know what you're thinking. I'll try my best to enter Lu Tian Academy. Let the city governor follow dazzling. Night Sorrow glanced at Bao Tutian. He was one of the targets he was going to purify, so he did not treat him as someone from the foggy area. Hearing that, Bao Tutian beamed and said, "It's too polite to call me the city governor. If you don't mind, just call me brother in the future." "Sure. Brother Bao Tutian." Yi Shang called out casually. He didn't call him elder brother directly because he felt that it was too intimate and inappropriate. At this time, Bao Tutian was about to say something. However, at this moment, an old man from Slaughter Heaven Academy suddenly started explaining the rules of Slaughter Heaven Academy's selection competition. It turned out that the selection of Lu Tian Academy was taking place in the mountains they had passed by. The rules were extremely cruel. Over 200,000 cultivators would have to go through a cruel battle, and the remaining 10 would enter Lu Tian Academy in the end. Over 200,000 cultivators, and only 10 would survive in the end. The Slaughter Heaven Academy selection competition was really brutal. The top academy in the foggy area is indeed not a place that ordinary people can enter. Night Sorrow could not help but feel his scalp turning numb after hearing the rules. It felt like Lu Tian Academy was not selecting geniuses, but killing gods. On average, each cultivator would have to kill about 20,000 cultivators before they could enter the Slaughter Heaven Academy. This was simply enough to make one shudder in fear. Hearing that, Bao Tutian transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow and explained, "That's not right. The rules were not so cruel in the past. If it were so cruel, I wouldn't have let you take part in it." Clan M. Chapter 31-35. Brother Bao Tu, you don't have to explain. I know that the Lu Tian Academy must have changed the rules at the last minute. Night Sorrow had not participated in the Lu Tian Academy selection. However, after recalling the conversation between Supremacy Bao Tu and Enling Tian, he could tell that the rules were not like this in the past. Yes. Although the previous selection was difficult, it was definitely not as cruel as this. Supreme Bao Tutian explained. He then added, "How about this? Bao Tu City will give up. Only 10 out of 200,000 people will advance. It's too difficult. No need. Let's observe first." Night Sorrow said and looked at the others with Supremacy Bao Tu. At this time, the others were also in an uproar. No one had expected the rules of the Lu Tian Academy selection to be so bloody. The Lu Tian Academy elder paused for a moment. Someone immediately shouted. "Why did you suddenly change the rules? Isn't this disregarding human lives?" "Yes. Lu Tian Academy is the #1 cultivation holy land in the foggy area. If it's not the #1 evil place, why did you make so many people bleed?" "Yes. Why did you treat us like we're not human?" Hearing their thunderous shouts, a helpless expression appeared on the old man's face. He turned to look at Lin Dongqing. Because today's rules were made by Lin Dongqing on the way here. Lu Tian Academy's original intention was to carry out the selection as usual. However, Lin Dongqing's younger brother had amazing talent. If there were no accidents, he should be able to advance to Heavenly Supreme in the battle. It would not be a problem for him to enter the top 10. He hoped that the rules would change to glory for 10 people and ruin for the rest. This way, the rewards would all go to these 10 people. His younger brother could also get a lot of rewards because of this, and Lin Dongqing would also get a lot of rewards. "I'll do it." Lin Dongqing immediately stood up after being stared at by the elder. He looked at the crowd and said, "This time, not only the rules are changed. The rewards will also be changed. Only the top 10 will get the rewards. If you don't have the guts to participate, withdraw now. Lu Tian Academy doesn't need cowards like you. Do you understand?" Boom. After Lin Dongqing said that, the crowd was in chaos again. It turned out that after the old man had explained the rules, everyone still had some ideas about the results. After all, this was related to the honor of many cities. But now that Lin Dongqing had changed the rules, only the top 10 cities would be rewarded. The other cities would all be in a mess. This caused many people with average strength to have thoughts of withdrawing. After all, to them, there was simply no need to give up their lives for no reason. This isn't too good. As soon as Lin Dongqing finished speaking, the old man who had just announced the rules transmitted his voice to him. "If that's the case, I'm afraid not only will a large number of cultivators withdraw from the city, but the city will also be affected. It would also affect the future luck of each city. Things will get out of hand. It's all right." The so-called providence was given to them by the Killer Heaven Academy. What can they do if we don't? Lin Dongqing did not take the old man's words to heart. After replying, he looked at the crowd and said, "Now, I announce that the selection competition this time has begun. Those who participate will enter the mountain range directly. Those who don't participate will be kicked out of the Killer Heaven Academy's qualifier forever, along with their cities. Kicked out forever. If I am kicked out forever, then I will be kicked out forever. None of us will participate. Let's see what he can do." As soon as Lin Dongqing finished speaking, many angry cultivators began to shout loudly. Many of the cultivators present chose to withdraw and not participate in the competition. Instantly, the number of cultivators who withdrew increased. At this moment, Lin Dongqing looked at his clan brother in the crowd and transmitted his voice, "Dong Hai. The rules were changed for you. You know what to do. Don't worry, clan brother." Lin Dong Hai replied with a voice transmission and flew in the direction of the mountain range. Just as he was about to enter, he roared coldly, "All rules are fair. You bunch of cowardly trash. If you don't dare to participate, just say so. Why do you have to criticize the rules? That's right. You have no chance of entering the Killer Heaven Academy in the first place. What difference does it make whether you withdraw or not?" After Lin Dong Hai spoke, another person in his clan also followed suit. After shouting that, he immediately flew towards the mountain range. Naturally, there were more than 2 participants from the Lin clan. Soon, a few more people flew over. Seeing that there were people flying towards the mountain range, some powerful cultivators from the other large tribes who were confident in their own strength also flew over. As time went by, the commotion grew bigger and bigger. Soon, 100 to 200 cultivators flew over. "Look! It's all because you can't do it. If you have the strength, you can speak with your strength. Complaining is the most useless thing in the world." Seeing that there were about 200 cultivators flying into the mountain range, Lin Dongqing immediately smiled. The old man, who had returned to stand behind him, sighed softly. Lin Dongqing noticed the old man's sigh and snorted coldly without saying anything. As for the other cultivators present, they completely realized that complaining was useless, so they simply stopped protesting. In such an environment, some cultivators who were confident in their strength began to fly towards the mountain range. About 2 hours later, the number of cultivators who walked out was about 1,000. At this moment, there were no more cultivators flying out. Knight Sorrow felt that it was about time. He looked at Bao Tutian and said, "Brother Bao Tutian, if you want to achieve more, you must enter the Killer Heaven Academy. Wait for my good news here." This Night Demon. Bao Tutian had wanted to persuade them to let it go. However, he saw that Night Sorrow had made up his mind. He said softly, "It's useless to say anything else. Elder brother, I wish you success. When you come back, let's drink for 3 days and 3 nights. Night Sorrow responded and flew out of the crowd towards the mountain range. Wow! There are even lower earthly sovereigns who dare to choose to participate. Lin Dongqing, who was floating in the air with his hands behind his back, saw Night Sorrow and shouted, "Look! Even lower earthly sovereigns dare to participate. This is a real warrior. Our Killer Heaven Academy likes such unyielding geniuses." In fact, at this moment, those who dared to fly towards the mountain range were at least upper earthly sovereigns. In Lin Dongqing's opinion, Night Sorrow was courting death. In fact, it was not only him. The other heavenly sovereigns and earthly sovereigns who gave up on the competition also felt that Night Sorrow was being foolish. Heavenly Sovereign Enling, who was hiding in the crowd, said to the masked man beside him, "I think that Night Demon has a chance to enter the top 10. Hearing this, the masked man sneered, "More than a chance. Clan M." Chapter 31-36. The masked heavenly sovereign had a deep impression of the combat prowess Night Sorrow had displayed during the battle with heavenly sovereign Enling. He also knew that Night Sorrow had the ancient coffin with him. That was something that even earthly sovereigns and heavenly sovereigns could not touch. As long as he took it out, no one in the mountain range could hurt Night Sorrow. Therefore, there was no doubt that he would survive until the end. Therefore, the masked heavenly sovereign felt that as long as Night Sorrow used the ancient coffin, he would definitely appear. Heavenly Supreme Enling nodded and said, "If he were to take out the ancient coffin, he would be chosen without a doubt. But I think that he will try his best to hide the fact that he has the ancient coffin. No one would want their secret to be exposed in front of Lu Tian Academy. Because if the Academy finds out, it will be difficult to determine who it belongs to." "That's true. What you said makes sense. But I think that this Night Devil will have great achievements in the future no matter what. He gives me a very unusual feeling. Unfortunately, we have already offended him, so it's not good to let him join the organization." Heavenly Sovereign Enling nodded and said, "We can't control him indeed. But don't forget that our organization has people in the academy. As long as we report it, even if he enters Lu Tian Academy, there is a chance that he will be used by us. What we need to do is to completely control him before anyone discovers him. Let him be used by the organization." "Yes. If we discover this genius, we will definitely be heavily rewarded by the organization. Besides, there is still that strange ancient coffin. I just hope that he won't use that terrifying ancient coffin in the selection this time." The masked heavenly sovereign continued to transmit his voice to Enling, "No. This matter cannot be delayed. I will report it. You stay here and block the Night Devil's every move." "All right. Go ahead." Heavenly Sovereign Enling said and looked in the direction of the mountain range. However, even though he was a heavenly sovereign, he could not see through the fog in the mountain range. After Night Sorrow walked into the fog, he had completely lost his vision. At this time, Lin Dongqing and the 4 elders beside him took out a few bronze mirrors and looked at some of the images in the mountain range through them. Just as everyone expected, when these people entered the mountain range, they were affected by the fog. Everyone became incomparably excited. He kept looking for an opponent. Even Lin Dongqing's clan brother, Lin Donghai, had bloodshot eyes as he searched for a target. Once they discovered the presence of other cultivators, they would immediately attack. As for the other cultivators, their reactions were similar to his. They all went mad in an instant. At this moment, due to the uniqueness of the mountain range array formation, Every cultivator could sense the cultivator closest to them. Therefore, the battle quickly became extremely intense. Among the more than 1,000 cultivators who had entered, none of them were simple. Other than Yi Shang, the one with the lowest cultivation was an upper earthly sovereign. Moreover, he was in a state of excitement, and the way he fought was extremely crazy. His momentum was also incomparably huge. Night Sorrow was the last to enter the mountain range. Therefore, his battle had started relatively late. It only started after some cultivators had fought 2 or 3 rounds. His opponent was an upper earthly sovereign, the three-eyed dire wolf. It had been stimulated by the fog and had become extremely manic. Not long after Night Sorrow entered the mountain range, before he was affected by the fog, it suddenly rushed out to attack him. My first opponent. Good timing. Night Sorrow was not affected by the fog, but he had already realized that his opponent's state was somewhat special. It must have been unable to withstand the impact of the fog and had become extremely ferocious. Moreover, it only knew how to use its strength in battle, and no longer paid attention to techniques. Under such circumstances, Yi Shan only needed to casually use a few of his ultimate techniques to kill him. Seeing this scene, an elder from Lu Tian Academy suddenly raised his eyebrows and said, "The only lower earthly sovereign is quite powerful. He can actually kill an upper earthly sovereign so quickly. Moreover, he doesn't seem to be affected by the fog. This kind of talent is really rare. In my opinion, Dongqing, you can make an exception and recruit him into Lu Tian Academy." Oh. Elder Su, do you think that the lower earthly sovereign is qualified? You should know what it means to make an exception and recruit him into Lu Tian Academy. When Lin Dongqing heard Elder Su's words, he immediately looked at him in surprise. At the same time, he looked at Night Sorrow in the bronze mirror. At this moment, after Night Sorrow had killed the three-eyed dire wolf, he had kept its spatial device. After a brief investigation, he continued to look for his next target. Although he was not affected by the fog too much, he still had an endless fighting spirit. The feeling of wanting to fight was simply unstoppable. Soon, Night Sorrow met his next opponent. It was a female practitioner who was a half-step to Heavenly Sovereign. On the surface, this female practitioner looked similar to a woman from the human race. But after fighting with Night Sorrow, his ears immediately changed, and a vertical eye appeared on his forehead, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. This eye looked like it contained thousands of small eyes, and it gave off an extremely evil feeling. This is a female practitioner from the Hausa clan. I heard that this female practitioner's cultivation method is extremely vicious. After defeating her opponent, she will absorb her opponent's eyes. She will also strengthen her pupil technique. This female practitioner has already cultivated the 1,000 illusion eyes and is a half-step to Heavenly Sovereign. If this lower earthly sovereign can kill her, she will definitely be recruited. She is definitely qualified to be recruited into the academy. Elder Su said as he watched the battle in front of him. Hearing this, Lin Dongqing nodded and said, "Let's finish watching this battle first." "All right." Elder Su replied. Then, he and the other elders fixed their gazes on the bronze mirror. Due to the fog's influence, the battle in the mountain range progressed very quickly. Night Sorrow and the female practitioner from the Hausa clan had fought for less than 30 breaths, but both of them had already exhausted themselves. At this point in the battle, Night Sorrow and the woman were almost evenly matched. At this moment, the woman snorted and said, "I didn't expect a lower earthly sovereign like you to have such strength. If you had cultivated to the upper earthly sovereign level, no one here would have been able to defeat you. However, you made a mistake by coming too early. Die." After shouting the word "die," the female practitioner from the Hausa clan immediately rose into the air and released her pupil technique. 1,000 illusion eyes. After the 1,000 illusion eyes was used, the thousands of eyeballs in her vertical eye all flew out. In the air, small black holes formed. Upon closer inspection, these black holes were actually eyes, but a casual glance at them revealed that they were actually eyes. However, after a casual glance, Night Sorrow realized that these eyes were not simple. He felt as if his spiritual soul was trembling. Clan M. Chapter 31-37. Is it a mental disgust, or do these eyes have a physical attack? Night Sorrow glanced around and muttered in his heart. These eyes were not ordinary. They made his soul tremble slightly, making him feel very uncomfortable. However, he did not feel any physical attack. Are you trembling? Standing behind the thousands of black holes, the female cultivator from the Hassa clan sneered and suddenly howled like a banshee, thousand illusory demonic light. Slash! Following her voice, those black holes that gave people goosebumps all started to emit a dark, cold light. Without exception, these black lights all shot towards Night Sorrow. It doesn't seem to have any attack power. What kind of attack does it contain? No matter what, let's dodge it first. Seeing these black lights shooting towards him, Night Sorrow used the sea serpent's eye to observe them, but he could not see their nature. Under the condition of activating the 33 Heavens Battle Mystic technique, he used a powerful movement technique and shuttled through the black lights. Seeing Night Sorrow shuttling through the black lights, Elder Sue of the Outdoor Academy could not help but nod and say, for an Earth Supreme, this is already a top-notch movement technique. Not bad at all. It's just a so-so. Lin Dongqing, who had seen Night Sorrow's performance, did not seem to care at all. He even showed disgust. Sigh. Elder Sue glanced at Lin Dongqing and could not help but shake his head. He knew very well. Night Sorrow's performance in these aspects was even close to Lin Dongqing's when he was a half-step Sky Supreme. It was this potential that made Lin Dongqing jealous. Therefore, it should be very difficult for him to get an exception from Lin Dongqing. Among the few people present, except for Lin Dongqing, no one else had the qualifications to make an exception for him. This method is not bad. Just as Elder Sue was sighing, Lin Dongqing, who had been extremely cold, suddenly exclaimed. Elder Sue and the other 3 elders looked over. Night Sorrow was shuttling freely through the black lights. However, after shuttling through for a while, these black lights suddenly became solid. It was like a spider's web. After these webs appeared, they immediately connected into a dense and three-dimensional black net. After the intersecting black net appeared, it immediately formed countless small spaces. Although Night Sorrow's movement technique was very good, he was still trapped in one of the small worlds. It was all of this that caused Lin Dongqing to applaud. This female cultivator from the Hassa clan is indeed extraordinary. Based on previous years' experience, she should be able to advance to the top 10 with this method. Elder Sue continued to speak as he watched the battle. Not bad. On this point, I agree with Elder Sue. As for this night demon, in my opinion, he won't be able to survive in the hands of Dancing Woman. Lin Dongqing said with a playful smile as he watched the battle. He had felt a sense of pressure from Night Sorrow's performance. Now that he saw Night Sorrow's setback, he was delighted. But at this moment, Night Sorrow, who had been trapped in the small world by Dancing Woman, suddenly broke through the barrier and rushed out. Suddenly, he shuttled through the crisscrossing black net. How is this possible? Dancing Woman, who had thought that Night Sorrow would be trapped to death by the 1,000 illusion net, was shocked when she saw Night Sorrow break out of the net. Until now, no earthly sovereign cultivator had been able to break her 1,000 illusion net. After thinking for a moment, Dancing Woman suddenly came to a realization and said, I understand. Although your realm is at the lower earthly sovereign level, your attack power has reached the level of a heavenly sovereign. That's why you can break my 1,000 illusion space. Your talent is indeed extraordinary. I'm sure your eyes are also very good. If you want my eyes, you have to protect your eyeballs first. After Yi Shan escaped, he let out a loud roar and roared at Hasa woman, a dragon's roar and a phoenix's cry. After the dragon roar and phoenix cry appeared, he suddenly blasted out a fiery demon-subduing spear. It caused layers of flames to burn in the void. These flame attacks, coupled with the dragon roar and phoenix cry, immediately destroyed a portion of the Thousand Illusion Net. Basically, Dancing Woman's Thousand Illusion Net had been broken. I didn't expect you to be able to break my Thousand Illusion Net. But after saying that, Dancing Woman controlled all the eyeballs and made them merge into one. They formed a huge sphere. After this black sphere appeared, it immediately floated above Dancing Woman's head. Then, the giant black ball on her head suddenly opened its eyes and looked at Yi Shan. Being stared at, Night Sorrow suddenly felt a sense of danger, as if he had been locked on by an ancient beast. It was a very bad feeling. This is one of the strongest eye techniques of the dancing tribe, the descent of all evil. There's no way to dodge it. This night demon is going to be unlucky. Seeing Dancing Woman's performance, Lin Dongqing, who was originally unhappy because the Thousand Illusion Net had been broken, immediately praised her. This move is indeed not simple. The cultivator who is locked on will be entangled by bad luck. Elder Murong from Lu Tian Academy exclaimed in admiration when he saw Lady Whirling Suo perform this move. Why do I feel like I've been completely locked on? At this moment, Night Sorrow, who was facing this move, had an indescribable feeling in his heart. It was extremely uncomfortable. He could imagine that this move was definitely not simple. However, the only way he could think of to break it was to use the power of merit. If he used the power of merit, Dancing Woman's attack would be nothing. However, at this moment, in front of everyone's eyes, he could not use the power of merit at all. Therefore, it was really difficult to deal with. At this moment, Xiaowu, who was in the space grotto heaven, suddenly said, I've seen this move used by others before. There's no way to dodge it. The person who is hit will be entangled by bad luck and will be extremely unlucky. If you're hit and continue to fight, you'll definitely be at a disadvantage. Oh. Then is there no way to break this move? Night Sorrow asked through voice transmission. Because this descent of all evil consumes a lot of energy. Basically, she can only use it once in a battle with you. If you want to dodge it, you can let others be hit. That's the only way to successfully neutralize this move. Xiaowu continued to remind him. That's right. That's a good idea. However, there doesn't seem to be any other cultivators around us. Dancing Woman's descent of all evil had already been used. Night Sorrow had no time to look for other cultivators to block it. At this moment, Xiaowu smiled and said, That's easy. Didn't you just take the three-eyed dire wolf spatial device? Just summon its divine artifact and use it to block the move. Use a divine artifact to block it. I don't think I can block it. As Night Sorrow replied to Xiaowu, he also summoned the three-eyed dire wolf spatial device. Chapter 31-38. After summoning the three-eyed dire wolf spatial artifact, Night Sorrow immediately took out an earthly sovereign artifact called the Coiling Dragon Scissors. He wanted to use it to block the descent of all evil. However, the reality was that Little Five had misjudged. The Coiling Dragon Scissors in front of him was not within the attack range of the descent of all evil. After taking it out, the descent of all evil bypassed it and continued to chase after Night Sorrow. If not for Night Sorrow's good movement technique that allowed him to fly far away in an instant, he would have been hit by the descent of all evil. Not bad. It's actually faster than an absolute art. However, in front of absolute strength, this night demon is still not enough. Lin Dongxing laughed heartily when he saw Yi Shang's reaction. In his opinion, although Night Sorrow could temporarily escape from the descent of all evil's pursuit, he would not be able to last long. Anyone with eyes could see that the descent of all evil had a tracking attribute. In a short while, he would be hit by the descent of all evil and become a god of misfortune. This swaying woman is really not bad. Her methods are very good. Elder Su, who was at the side, could not help but sigh when he saw Night Sorrow running non-stop. He was optimistic about Night Sorrow and naturally hoped that Night Sorrow could win the battle. However, from the looks of it, this dancing lady's descent of all evil was somewhat special. While they were watching the battle, a cold smile appeared on Dancing Lady's face and she said, "It's useless. In front of the descent of all evil, no matter how you run, you will be hit in the end. I know that once the descent of all evil is used, it will definitely hit. However, you can't control who it hits." Night Sorrow, who had adjusted his speed to the maximum, suddenly teleported to Dancing Woman's side as he ran away like a madman. When they were only 100 feet away, Yi Shang used the Divine Essence Dragon-locking Array to lock him and the swaying woman in a sealed space. "If you continue to attack with the descent of all evil, we will all be hit. Let's see if you are willing to let yourself be attacked by the descent of all evil." After being trapped, a whirling woman clearly wanted to attack and break the Divine Essence trapping array. But at this moment, Night Sorrow directly engaged in close combat with her, not giving her a chance to break through the sealed space. Once the descent of all evils is unleashed, there's no stopping it. If you continue like this, both of us will be affected at the same time. At this moment, Swaying Woman said with a displeased expression. "Two people getting hit at the same time is better than me getting hit alone." Yi Shang didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. He continued to attack Dancing Woman. Facing the evil that was about to attack, Hassa Woman frowned and said coldly, "You will regret it. You're wrong. I won't regret it. It should be you who will regret using such a move." Night Sorrow said unhurriedly when he saw the arrival of all evil. At this moment, he and Dancing Woman had no chance to dodge. Suddenly, he was hit by the descent of all evil. After being hit by the descent of all evil, Night Sorrow immediately felt a black aura appear between his eyebrows. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. As for Dancing Woman, she escaped from the sealed space. After escaping, Dancing Woman glanced at Yi Shang and said coldly, "Just wait to be plagued by bad luck and die in the mountain range." After saying that, she left without hesitation. She had no intention of continuing to fight with Night Sorrow. "I still got hit. But two people getting hit at the same time is better than me getting hit alone. Being killed." Night Sorrow said as he felt the black aura between his eyebrows. Then, he prepared to find a quiet area. He set up a concealment array and then used the power of merit to purify the black aura. However, as soon as Dancing Woman left, two cultivators appeared in front of Night Sorrow. These two cultivators obviously came from the same city. Their clothes and auras were similar. They saw that Night Sorrow's aura was unstable, as if he had been poisoned. One of them, a burly man with a curly beard, said with a smile, "This cultivator is the sovereign I told you about. I didn't expect him to have broken through to the lower earthly sovereign level. Looking at him, he must have been poisoned. This is a good opportunity for us to enslave him." "Ha! I understand what you mean. Let's capture him immediately." The other male cultivator had delicate skin and tender flesh. However, when he spoke, he sounded very feminine, which made people feel uncomfortable listening to him. This is a pair of perverts. It seems that this descent of all evil will really bring bad luck to people. Night Sorrow heard their conversation and immediately understood that he had met a cultivator with a penchant for homosexual acts. He cursed his bad luck in his heart. However, at this time, he had already been hit by the descent of all evil. His chi and blood were affected and he needed to recover for a while before he could fight again. It would not be easy to take down the two people in front of him. Therefore, Knight Sorrow immediately used the technique to get up and escape. This descent of all evil was very strange. He felt that if he was in this state, it would be difficult for him to fight against the two of them. He could only choose to escape. Ha! Want to run? Let's see where you can run to. Seeing that Knight Sorrow wanted to escape, the bearded man shouted and immediately laughed out loud. As for the feminine cultivator, he pinched his throat and said, "You are no match for us at all. You should choose to join us." Bah! Facing two male cultivators with a penchant for homosexual acts, how could Knight Sorrow choose to join them? He used his movement technique to escape into the distance. Run. Do you think you can run? Knight Sorrow began to escape, and the two of them immediately chased after him. I see that Night Devil is hit by the descent of all evil. He obviously can't escape the misfortune in front of him. He is about to be caught. Knight Sorrow was completely unlucky in the process of escaping. No matter how he escaped, he would meet people. Seeing this scene, Lin Dongqing could not help but laugh. He had originally thought that Knight Sorrow was a threat, but now he felt that he was just a so-so. Don't force me to kill you too. Knight Sorrow was completely enraged by the two's persistent pursuit. Humph. In your current state, I can suppress you alone. I think you should choose to surrender so that you don't suffer a lot. Seeing Knight Sorrow, who was in a bad state, the bearded burly man roared in disdain. It's impossible for me to surrender without putting up a fight. You guys should pay attention to your own lives. Knight Sorrow replied and gave up on escaping completely. That was because he realized that he was so unlucky right now. If he continued to escape, he might be even more unlucky. He stood on the spot and prepared to fight the pair of men with a homosexual act. After fighting for about 50 breaths, not only was Knight Sorrow not at a disadvantage, he was even vaguely suppressing the two of them. Although the bearded burly man and the feminine man gave off a strong feeling, that was not the case in reality. Against Knight Sorrow, who was enveloped by the descent of all evil, they were completely suppressed. The two of you don't have any ability at all. Why bother coming in? After suppressing the two of them, Knight Sorrow said disdainfully. Clan M. Chapter 31-39. Knight Sorrow's words meant that he couldn't figure out why the two male cultivators, who had homosexual fetishes, would enter such a bloody azure field without much strength. After all, out of more than 1,000 people who entered, only 10 would survive. What should we do? This lower earthly sovereign is quite powerful. Although he has bad luck, he's not easy to deal with. With Knight Sorrow taking the initiative, the sissy said softly. Hearing this, the bearded man laughed and said, "What else can we do? Combine and use your ultimate move." Okay. After the bearded man finished speaking, the sissy responded and threw himself into the bearded man's arms, sitting on his shoulder. What kind of trick is this? Their actions stunned Knight Sorrow, and he felt goosebumps all over his body. What do you know? At this moment, the sissy and the bearded man's voices fused together and scolded. Then, the two of them actually completed the combination. In the void, they formed a huge fig tree. The fig tree has become a spirit. It turns out that you are a male and a female. Seeing the two of them combine and form a huge fig tree, Knight Sorrow suddenly understood. The two of them must have been born as a male and a female, but they usually fought separately. You'll soon understand why we've entered this azure field. When the two of them combined under the fig tree said this, they transformed into male cultivators again. At the same time, they shot countless darts made of leaves at Knight Sorrow. After combining, my strength is indeed much stronger. If Night Sorrow was at his peak, he would definitely be able to catch these darts easily. But at this moment, he had bad luck, and although he was careful to deal with them, he was still pierced by a few green leaves. When these leaves cut through his skin, they immediately sucked a large amount of blood from Night Sorrow's body. They looked similar to leeches. Very good nourishment. We like you. You should be prepared to become our nourishment. After absorbing the blood, the male cultivator, who had transformed from the fig tree, licked his lips with his tongue and said evilly, "Where is your confidence?" Night Sorrow pointed his golden heavenly halberd at the other party. Right now, because the golden heavenly halberd had absorbed a large amount of Ancient Coffin's black gas, it looked completely black. No one would be able to tell that it was actually a divine artifact from the eternal supreme realm. Haha. How could he still be confident? Don't you feel that there's poison on our leaves? The male cultivator looked at Night Sorrow sympathetically and said, "It won't be long before you can't move at all. At that time, we'll be able to kill you effortlessly and absorb you as nutrients. TSK, once we absorb you, we should be able to advance to heavenly sovereigns." Deadly poison. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Yishang's face. If the other party hadn't reminded him of this matter, he really wouldn't have noticed it. After discovering this, he immediately circulated the power of virtue in his body, allowing the power of virtue to purify all the toxins. Lin Dongqing, Elder Su, and the others who were watching from the outside didn't notice anything strange because the merit power was circulating in his body. What's going on? Something doesn't seem right. On the other hand, the hermaphrodite male cultivator felt that something was amiss. However, they didn't expect that Night Sorrow was from the eternal supreme realm. They were only wondering why Night Sorrow hadn't been paralyzed after several breaths. There's no need to wonder. Your poison has no effect on me. Night Sorrow said and then roared, "Eat my divine spear." Then, he used the golden heavenly halberd to attack the male cultivator in front of him. Your attack power is not bad, but your technique is too bad. Facing the divine spear, the hermaphrodite male cultivator didn't show any panic. He took out something that looked like a tree root from his spatial artifact and easily blocked the attack. You're very strong. Could it be that my bad luck is to continuously encounter experts? The divine spear was easily blocked by the other party. Night Sorrow immediately determined that the hermaphrodite male cultivator in front of him was not simple. At the very least, he shouldn't be weaker than the whirling woman who had fought with him. After thinking for a moment, Night Sorrow immediately cast a divine essence trapping formation on the male cultivator. This time, he used a large amount of ancient coffin black gas in the divine essence trapping formation. It made the trapping formation incomparably dark. Then, he used the fire beacon smoke diagram. In this kind of dark aura, the hermaphrodite male cultivator was confused by the fire beacon smoke diagram. He really fell for it and was trapped for a short period of time. What kind of formation is this? We don't seem to be able to identify the direction. In the ancient coffin black gas, the fire beacon smoke diagram played a miraculous role. It made the hermaphrodite male cultivator feel a little confused. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow was prepared to seize the opportunity and kill the other party in an instant. However, at this moment, Yi Shan, who was about to unleash an attack, suddenly stopped. Before he could make a move, he felt a chill on the back of his neck and immediately broke out in cold sweat. He knew that this was because he was too engrossed in the battle just now and was ambushed. Night Sorrow subconsciously flew forward, wanting to dodge this attack. Boom! However, things did not go as he wished. The attacker, who was already prepared, would not give him a chance and sent him flying with a palm strike. If not for the fact that Night Sorrow's body had reached the level of a heavenly supreme, his head would have been smashed. Cough cough. Night Sorrow, who was sent flying in the void and slammed into the mountain, couldn't help but cough a few times after getting up. Then, he swallowed 3 pills in a row before gradually recovering. However, at this moment, the hermaphrodite male cultivator who was originally trapped by the fire beacon smoke diagram had successfully escaped. The fire beacon smoke diagram was obtained by the cultivator who ambushed him just now. Night Sorrow used the sea serpent's eye to take a closer look and realized that the cultivator who ambushed him was Lin Donghai. Thinking of Lin Dongqing's eyes, although Night Sorrow did not know Lin Donghai's name, he guessed that there must be a relationship between them. A lower earthly sovereign dares to come in and seek death. You are really overestimating yourself. After sending Night Sorrow flying, Lin Donghai immediately showed a trace of disdain. However, he was very surprised by Night Sorrow's body strength. According to his estimation, although he did not use his full strength, that strength was more than enough to kill a lower earthly sovereign. Who are you? What is your relationship with Lin Dongqing? Night Sorrow, who was secretly recovering, asked. He wanted to sound out the other party's intentions. Hearing this, Lin Donghai's face showed a strange smile and said, "My relationship with him. When you are about to die, I will tell you. It seems that I have no chance to get an answer from you." Night Sorrow looked at Lin Donghai and said calmly. A strong fighting spirit burst out from his body. Clan M. Chapter 3140. From Night Sorrow's point of view, if bad luck befell him, he would only encounter a few masters. That was nothing. Seeing Night Sorrow's fighting spirit rise, Lin Donghai's face immediately showed a trace of disdain. He then sneered, "Do you really think that you can withstand my attack? Die." After speaking, he did not give Night Sorrow a chance to react and struck again. This time, although Lin Donghai did not use any weapons, he used a secret skill. Dark Shadow Sun Palm. The shadow in his left hand and the sun in his right. With 2 completely different auras, they struck toward Night Sorrow. This is the Dark Shadow Sun Palm, one of the secret skills of the Lin clan. It looks ordinary, but its power is amazing. I'm afraid that this lower earthly sovereign will be killed. Lin Donghai, who was outside, looked at the image in the bronze mirror and sneered. Elder Su and Elder Murong did not speak. However, Elder Su could not help but frown. He obviously did not agree with Lin Donghai. He felt that with Night Sorrow's potential, even if he could not defeat Lin Donghai, he would not be killed in one move. At that moment, Night Sorrow, who was facing the Dark Shadow Sun Palm, looked at the 2 lights, one dark and one bright. He formed a seal with his left hand and waved the golden heavenly halberd with his right hand, striking out with the divine finger and the divine spear. The 2 attacks cooperated well with each other and struck out at the 2 lights. Boom! Boom! When the 2 loud noises were heard, the 4 lights had already collided. In the end, it was a tie, and the 4 lights were annihilated in the void. The void, which was originally blooming, calmed down once again. I knew it would be like this. Although Elder Su did not speak, he muttered to himself. In Lu Tian Academy, an ordinary elder like him did not have a higher status than a genius like Lin Donghai. Hence, he did not have much right to speak in front of Lin Donghai. Seeing that Night Sorrow had withstood Lin Donghai's attack, Lin Dongqing, who had predicted that he would be killed in one move, suddenly became gloomy. He felt that he had been slapped in the face. He immediately took out a sound transmission stone and said, "Donghai, immediately kill the night demon in front of you. If you can't even deal with a lower earthly sovereign, it will be difficult for me to help you fight for your position. Don't worry, clan brother. I will kill him immediately." Lin Donghai, who received Lin Dongqing's message, revealed a trace of viciousness. He knew that his performance was being watched by the people from Killer Heaven Academy. He immediately took out his divine weapon from his spatial artifact. Devil Sky Halberd. After the Devil Sky Halberd was taken out, it immediately released endless black gas. It gave off an extremely evil feeling. A half-step Heavenly Sovereign divine artifact. Luckily, it's not a real Heavenly Sovereign artifact. After using the Sea Serpent's Eye to observe for a moment, Night Sorrow confirmed that the divine weapon in the other party's hand was not a Heavenly Sovereign divine weapon. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, the androgynous male cultivator who had been standing to the side and watching the battle for a while silently left. Because they judged that they were no match for Lin Donghai, they didn't want to be unlucky. Seeing the male cultivator who had been eyeing him covetously leave, Night Sorrow, who was facing Lin Donghai alone, relaxed a little. However, at this moment, Night Sorrow suddenly felt an indescribable sense of danger. This sense of danger was not something he could sense from Lin Donghai. Therefore, he used the Sea Serpent's Eye to look at his surroundings. He immediately discovered that he and Lin Donghai were actually surrounded by more than 20 half-step Heavenly Sovereigns. None of those people's auras were stronger than Lin Donghai's individually, but together, they were impressive. At the same time, Night Sorrow saw that none of these people seemed to have appeared in his memory. This was very abnormal. This was because every cultivator who had entered the area of the mountain range had walked out in front of him. With Night Sorrow's eyesight and memory, he could easily remember everyone. How dare you be distracted when fighting me? At this time, Lin Donghai did not notice anything unusual. The surrounding cultivators were too cleverly hidden. It was as if they had become one with the mountain rocks, and they did not release any aura. If Night Sorrow did not have the Sea Serpent's Eye, he would not have been able to see them clearly. Stop! Lin Donghai, who had taken out the demonic Sky Halberd, did not realize that he and Night Sorrow were surrounded and were preparing to attack. Night Sorrow, who sensed that something was wrong, immediately sent a voice transmission to him. What? Are you going to beg for mercy? If you choose to submit, I can bring you into the Heaven-Slaying Academy. Lin Donghai was a little surprised when he received Night Sorrow's voice transmission. Then, he also sent a voice transmission. Don't be so smug. Right now, there are about 20 half-step Heavenly Sovereigns around us. They have already locked on to the two of us. I guess they are waiting for us to fight and injure each other. Night Sorrow continued to tell him the situation around them through voice transmission. You are afraid that I will attack with all my might and kill you. Is that why you are making up lies? When Lin Donghai heard Night Sorrow's words, he immediately released his soul power to check the surroundings. However, he did not find any clues. Then, he looked at Night Sorrow with disdain. I am not afraid of you, so there is no need to make up lies. Why don't you try and attack me 10,000 miles to the east? In my opinion, they are coming for you. Although Night Sorrow was not afraid of Lin Donghai, he was wary of the 20 half-step Heavenly Sovereigns around them. Those people had let the male and female cultivator go, but they had been watching him and Lin Donghai. This meant that their target was either Night Sorrow or Lin Donghai. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow felt that they were not targeting him. Because he was not worthy of an ordinary organization dispatching so many half-step Heavenly Sovereigns. In other words, these people were most likely targeting Lin Donghai. He was just unlucky to have been implicated. Thinking up to this point, Yishang thought to himself, this misfortune really does exist. I guess that swaying woman is not any better. Coming for me. Lin Donghai frowned and thought for a while. Then, he sent a voice transmission to Lin Dongxing. Brother, take a look and see if there are other cultivators lying in ambush around me and this ant. Okay. After Lin Dongxing responded, he used the bronze mirror to check everything around them. After a while, he did not find anything amiss. So, he said, "There is nothing around you." "Humph. I knew it." After receiving Lin Dongqing's answer, Lin Donghai looked at Night Sorrow with disdain. "How dare you trick me? Die." Then, he waved the demonic sky halberd and said, "Demonic sky soul-severing slash. A fool like you should die here today." Of course, Night Sorrow was not afraid of Lin Donghai's attack. However, he did not want to be implicated, so he chose to run away immediately. "Where do you think you are going?" Lin Donghai, who did not realize that he was surrounded, immediately chased after Night Sorrow when he saw that he was trying to escape. Chapter 31-41. Lin Donghai, who was chasing after him, looked like a victor. He really thought that Night Sorrow had escaped because of him. "You really are an unsalvageable fool. If I were you, I would contact Lin Dongqing and ask him to send someone to save you." Night Sorrow, who was in front of him, roared. Lin Donghai, who did not believe Night Sorrow at all, said nonchalantly, "You should be the one asking for help, not me. You're hopeless." Night Sorrow said. Then, he unleashed his full speed, trying to distance himself from Lin Donghai. After all, according to his judgment, the other party was most likely here for Lin Donghai, not him. Go! However, the cultivators who were lying in ambush started to move. From their point of view, Night Sorrow and Lin Donghai looked like they were running away. Hence, they launched an all-out attack. Around 20 half-step heavenly sovereigns appeared, and Night Sorrow and Lin Donghai were both intercepted. "We can't escape. If we can't, we can only summon the ancient coffin to block them." After being intercepted by so many cultivators, Night Sorrow immediately distanced himself from the shocked Lin Donghai. He knew that if he got closer to the other party, he would definitely encounter more ferocious attacks. Lin Donghai was completely dumbfounded when he realized that so many cultivators had appeared. In his shock, he immediately sent a voice transmission to Lin Dongqing. "Brother, I've been ambushed. Save me. I saw it. But you have to hold on for about 30 breaths." As Lin Dongqing replied, he had already flown toward the mountain range with the 4 elders of the Lu Tian Academy. In fact, they had already seen the cultivators when they appeared. There was no need for Lin Donghai to say anything. 30 breaths? Lin Donghai was completely dizzy when he heard this number. He had no confidence in fighting against at least 10 cultivators of the same level alone for 30 seconds. Reality was crueler than he had expected. Around 20 half-step heavenly sovereigns had appeared and judged Night Sorrow and Lin Donghai's strength. Only 4 of them were sent to deal with Night Sorrow, while the rest surrounded Lin Donghai. "It's over. 30 breaths. I can't hold on for that long." Lin Donghai glanced at Night Sorrow and saw that there were only 4 cultivators attacking him. He immediately felt envious. If there were only 4 of them, then it wouldn't be a problem for him to hold on for 30 breaths of time. However, reality was so cruel that he had no choice but to lower his head. Under the suppression, although Lin Donghai was constantly brandishing the Devil Sky Halberd, he suffered heavy injuries every moment. There were simply too many of them, and he had no ability to resist at all. In the process of resisting, Lin Donghai could be said to have used all his means, taking out all the divine artifacts and secret treasures in his spatial artifact. But there was no way to defend against it. "Who are you? Why did you come after me?" Lin Donghai, who was soon beaten to the point where he could not fight back, asked the cultivators who were eyeing him covetously. At this moment, his bun was already disheveled and his mouth was full of blood. He looked very ferocious. "You don't need to know who we are. You only need to know that you are about to die. After Lin Donghai asked this question, one of the cultivators who had killed him replied coldly. However, this cultivator's voice was masked, and it was impossible to tell if he was male or female. Damn it! My brother won't let you off. Only about 10 breaths of time had passed. Lin Donghai knew that he could not continue to hold on and roared. Thank you for worrying about us. The cultivator who had just spoken replied coldly. Then, he attacked and prepared to kill Lin Donghai. Stop. Otherwise, none of you will be able to leave. At this moment, Lin Dongqing, who was flying while paying attention to the bronze mirror, roared from hundreds of thousands of miles away. Stop. Dream on. Kill. None of the cultivators who heard Lin Dongqing's roar showed fear. A few of them attacked one after another and completely destroyed Lin Donghai. Damn it. All of you deserve to die. Seeing that Lin Donghai was killed, Lin Dongqing threw away the bronze mirror and sped up towards their location. Let's hurry up too. It doesn't matter if one of us dies, but we can't let them kill all the cultivators participating in the selection. Elder Su, who took the bronze mirror, looked at the other 3 elders and said. Yes, we can't let this get out of hand. Elder Muro nodded and sped up with the others. However, compared to Lin Dongqing, who was burning his bloodline, they were much slower. Just as they were heading towards the extreme pole, Night Sorrow had already escaped far away from the pursuit of 4 cultivators. Of the cultivators just now, only 4 had been sent to deal with him. This made Night Sorrow very happy. Against these half-step heavenly sovereigns, he could easily escape from their encirclement. In fact, he was not afraid of the 4 of them at all if he fully unleashed his power. However, if he was entangled by them, he would be surrounded by more than 20 cultivators. Then, it would be difficult for him to protect himself. At this moment, he was frantically flying in the direction of Lin Dongqing and the others. He felt that these people who surrounded him and Lin Donghai either had a grudge against the Lu Heaven Academy or the Lin family. Escaping in this direction was the best choice. Lin Dongqing. While being chased, Night Sorrow quickly saw Lin Dongqing. Seeing Lin Dongqing, the rock in Yishang's heart was immediately lifted. This was because Lin Dongqing was a true heavenly sovereign. The people chasing him were all half-step heavenly sovereigns. There was a huge gap between the 2 sides. Lin Dongqing is here. Follow the plan. When the 4 cultivators who were chasing Night Sorrow saw Lin Dongqing, they immediately stopped and fled in another direction. Trying to escape. All of you stay here and pay for my brother's life. Seeing that the cultivators were trying to escape, Lin Dongqing roared maliciously and chased after them. When he passed by Night Sorrow, he said coldly, Donghai has already died in battle. You shouldn't continue to live either. As he spoke, he struck out a palm at Night Sorrow. Although this palm strike wasn't a secret technique, it was still an attack from a heavenly sovereign. Its power was immense. As for Lin Dongqing, after unleashing this palm strike, he no longer paid any attention to Yishan and continued to chase forward. It was as if Night Sorrow was already a dead man. What a powerful attack! Lin Dongqing is indeed the top genius of the previous cohort. Lin Dongqing's attack was much stronger than that of an ordinary lower heavenly sovereign. Night Sorrow felt that this attack was at least 10 times stronger than the one that Heavenly Sovereign and Ling had struck out. It would be very difficult for him to defend against it. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow, who had no way of dealing with it, took out the ancient coffin from his spatial artifact. Clan M. Chapter 3142. After taking out the ancient coffin, Night Sorrow immediately placed it in front of him. Lin Dongqing's attack landed on the black gas surrounding the ancient coffin. It did not even cause a ripple before it was annihilated. It was like a stone that was thrown into a lake but did not cause any ripples. I wonder what's going on with this ancient coffin. This level of defensive power is simply astonishing to the extreme. Seeing the ancient coffin blocking the opponent's attack again, Knight Sorrow suddenly had a thought. He was wondering if the ancient coffin contained the corpse of an extreme state. If so, perhaps the next time he returned to the eternal supreme world, he could let the supreme longevity and the coiling dragon spear study it. But then, Knight Sorrow thought to himself, the attack of an ordinary heavenly sovereign can't even cause a ripple. The two seniors probably can't even open this ancient coffin. This matter needs to be considered at length. What is this? An ancient coffin. Its defense is so amazing. This night demon is also someone with an inheritance. Just as Knight Sorrow was pondering, Elder Sue, who was holding the bronze mirror, happened to see this scene and secretly speculated. In the foggy area, the three major experts were lofty existences and basically never showed their faces. But below them, there were many forces and families. Usually, these forces and families fought fiercely. Elder Sue felt that Knight Sorrow must have come from a major force or family. The ancient coffin in his hand was proof, but he was not as high profile as the Lin brothers. He secretly made up his mind to befriend him and felt that he should help him keep this secret. So he did not publicize it. And at this time, the few elders beside him were all doing their best to hurry on with their journey and did not notice this at all. You actually didn't die. When everyone flew nearby and saw Knight Sorrow, Elder Murong immediately exclaimed in surprise. In his and the other elders' opinion, Knight Sorrow must have died like Lin Donghai. Good luck. Saved my life. That person is chasing inside. When Knight Sorrow saw Elder Murong and the others, he immediately pointed in the direction Lin Dongqing had gone. He did not want to see these people attacking him like Lin Dongqing had done. After all, even though the elders before him were not as powerful as Lin Dongqing, their strength should be on par with him. How is he going to deal with it? Elder Murong said after Knight Sorrow finished speaking. In his opinion, Knight Sorrow was a suspect, and he was definitely related to Lin Donghai's death. At this time, Elder Sue, who understood Elder Murong's meaning, stood out and said, in my opinion, he was a lucky man to be able to survive in that kind of environment. We should make an exception and enroll him into the academy. Hearing this, Elder Murong immediately sent a message to Elder Sue. Elder Sue, could it be that this lad is related to you? Why are you speaking up for him again and again? What can I possibly have to do with him? Elder Sue replied and continued, I can only tell you that he received Lin Dongqing's full-force palm strike and was unharmed. He took Lin Dongqing's full-powered palm strike and came out unscathed. How did you do it? When Elder Murong heard this, he immediately looked at Knight Sorrow curiously. However, he did not see anything special about Knight Sorrow. He stared at Knight Sorrow for a while, then asked, how did you receive Lin Dongqing's attack? Did you use the secret treasure that your family gave you? These elders don't know that I used the ancient coffin. When he heard Elder Murong's question, Knight Sorrow was first surprised, then said, I did not use any secret treasure. I was just lucky. If you don't want to say, then forget it. Seeing that Knight Sorrow had admitted that he had blocked Lin Dongqing's attack, Elder Murong did not ask further. He agreed with Elder Sue's suggestion. He said, I agree with your suggestion. Let's help mediate the situation later. In his opinion, Knight Sorrow must have someone backing him up. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to receive Lin Dongqing's full-force attack with the strength of a lower earthly sovereign. Elder Murong, who had no background, did not want to offend such an existence. Hence, he agreed to help mediate the situation. I agree too. Seconded. After Elder Murong had agreed, the other two elders also agreed with Elder Sue's suggestion. After getting the other people's approval, Elder Su smiled at Night Sorrow and said, "We will help you apply for a place to enter Killer Heaven Academy directly. You don't have to continue fighting. I think it's better to forget about it. Isn't that person in charge of your group? He doesn't have a good impression of me. I'd better continue fighting." Seeing that no one wanted to continue questioning him, Night Sorrow said and turned to leave. Seeing Night Sorrow's back, Elder Su smiled and shouted, "Then we'll meet in the academy." In his opinion, Night Sorrow had the ancient coffin to protect him, so he would not be threatened in the mountains. It was certain that he would advance to the top 10. Okay. Yishang turned his head to look and made a sound of acknowledgement. At this time, Elder Su continued, "I will help you keep your ancient coffin a secret." As for the others, they did not see it at all. "Thank you, Elder Su." Hearing that, Night Sorrow was shocked, but he calmed down immediately. This Elder Su's behavior was clearly to befriend him. In that case, he would not casually reveal the ancient coffin. "See you later," Elder Su said again and flew in the direction that Lin Dongqing had gone with the other 3 elders. Soon, they saw Lin Dongqing. At this time, Lin Dongqing was standing in front of a destroyed teleportation portal, cursing something angrily. There were no signs of fighting around him. Clearly, no one had caught up to him. The people who killed Lin Donghai should have escaped. Young Master Qing. He's already dead. My condolences. Seeing that Lin Dongqing was ready to explode at any time, Elder Murong went forward to persuade him. Someone is definitely targeting our Lin family on purpose. The Lin family will not let this matter rest. Lin Dongqing said coldly, then said, "Follow me to check the entire mountain range to see if there are any fish that escaped the net. As for the selection, continue as usual." Okay. Elder Murong said, and then followed Lin Dongqing to check the entire mountain range with the other elders. After checking 3 to 4 times and witnessing dozens of battles, they did not find anything at all. At this time, Lin Dongqing said, "It seems that their target was Donghai. Now that they have achieved their goal, they have all escaped. This matter is not only targeted at the Lin family, but also a challenge to the Killer Heaven Academy. When we go back, we will report it." Elder Murong looked at Lin Dongqing and said. Hearing that, Lin Dongqing nodded. "Thank you, Elder Murong." Just as he said that, his expression changed. He looked in a direction and said, "What? You're not dead. Clan M." Chapter 3143. Why would I die? Yishang sneered in the void as he looked at Lin Dongqing. He could feel that he was very unlucky. He had been deliberately avoiding Lin Dongqing, but he had not expected to meet him. If Lin Dongqing attacked him, his ancient coffin would be exposed. If Lin Dongqing discovered the ancient coffin, it would cause a huge commotion. That would be awkward. A cold smile appeared on Lin Dongqing's face when he heard Yishang's words, "You were actually able to receive my attack. Not bad. However, you still have to die. Lin Donghai has been ambushed and killed. You fought with him. Only by being killed can you prove your innocence. Otherwise, you will still be his sinner. We were ambushed together. He was killed because he was not strong enough. What does that have to do with me? If I can withstand the attack of a heavenly supreme like you, why would I be killed by some half-step heavenly sovereigns?" Night Sorrow hovered in the air and looked at Lin Dongqing expressionlessly. There were 4 elders beside Lin Dongqing. He had to make the situation clear. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to enter the Lu Tian Academy. "You are twisting words and forcing logic. Die." After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Lin Dongqing agreed with him. If Night Sorrow could withstand his full-powered attack, he would definitely be able to withstand the attack of a half-step heavenly supreme. After shouting, Lin Dongqing raised his hand and was about to attack. At that moment, Elder Su suddenly said, "Hold on. I have been observing this night demon through the bronze mirror. I believe that he has nothing to do with the spies. If he uses the secret treasure on him, he can kill Lin Donghai instantly. There is no need for the spies to attack." Secret treasure. Lin Dongqing looked coldly at Night Sorrow and said, "Hand over your secret treasure." "Why?" Night Sorrow looked at Lin Dongqing and said disdainfully. Ever since he had started cultivating, he had never bowed his head to anyone. Naturally, he would not compromise now. "There is no why. If I ask you to hand it over, you have to hand it over." Lin Dongqing continued to speak unyieldingly. At the same time, he was already preparing to attack. Yang Kai was very interested in artifacts that could resist true qi attacks. "Are all the genius students of Killer Heaven Academy trash like you? If that's the case, then I don't mind not joining. I don't want to become trash myself." Night Sorrow mocked Lin Dongqing, who was trying to rob him. Naturally, he would not give up on joining the Killer Heaven Academy, but he was very displeased with the person in front of him. "You're courting death." After being mocked by Night Sorrow, Lin Dongqing roared and took out his divine artifact. He was ready to kill Night Sorrow and take his secret artifact for himself. According to his judgment, if he didn't use the divine artifact, he definitely wouldn't be able to kill him. At this moment, Elder Su stood out once more and said, "No. Lin Dongqing, as the invigilator of this selection competition, you made a huge mistake by changing the rules at the last minute. No matter what, you can't attack a contestant who didn't make a mistake. Do you really think that the higher-ups of the academy don't pay attention to this place? Then, how do you think this matter should be resolved since he insulted me?" Lin Dongqing looked at Elder Su with his cold eyes. He was very displeased that Elder Su was protecting Night Sorrow. However, when he thought of the higher-ups that Elder Su mentioned, he suppressed the urge to attack and asked coldly, "I think we need to return to the academy and let the higher-ups decide what to do about this matter. If there's a problem with his identity, the higher-ups won't let him off. If there's no problem with his identity, he'll be punished accordingly for offending the invigilator." Elder Su said, giving Lin Dongqing a way out of this embarrassing situation. Hearing this, Lin Dongqing said, "How about this? If he can enter the final top 10, we'll bring him back to the academy. If he can't, then he'll die in the mountain range. There's no need to say anything." "That's good too." Elder Su immediately agreed when he saw that Lin Dongqing had no intention to continue attacking. Then, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Did you hear Invigilator Lin's words?" "I heard it." Night Sorrow replied. He knew that Elder Su was definitely helping him, so he didn't refute. "Continue participating in the selection competition. If you successfully advance, don't think about escaping." Elder Su said again and let Night Sorrow leave. When Night Sorrow left, Lin Dongqing thought sinisterly, "You'd better die in the selection competition. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble when you enter the academy." Night Sorrow could actually think of this, but he wasn't afraid. He continued to wander in the mountain range. This mountain range was very special, and it was very difficult to set up a formation. Otherwise, Night Sorrow could easily appear if he stopped to set up the 5-bull formation. After traveling for a long time in the mountain range, he didn't encounter any contestants. Night Sorrow judged that this was because the number of contestants had decreased after a period of battle. Just like that, he flew in the mountain range for 3 days and 3 nights, but he didn't encounter any opponents. Moreover, he didn't hear any movements around him. At this moment, Bai Mei Sanren transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. "In my opinion, most of the remaining people should be breaking through. They're preparing to advance to Sky Supreme before coming out. What do you think?" That should be the case. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so quiet. Night Sorrow replied. He felt that Bai Mei Sanren's analysis made sense. Then, he casually found a place in the mountain range and waited quietly, no longer actively looking for opponents. After all, in the selection competition, as long as there were 10 people left, they would advance. However, soon, Night Sorrow realized that his bad luck wasn't over yet. Because during the 2 days he waited here, a deafening roar sounded near him. Then, an overwhelming tribulation cloud arrived. Someone had actually successfully advanced to Sky Supreme nearby and attracted the lightning tribulation. Night Sorrow looked up and cursed inwardly. Because he happened to be in the middle of the lightning tribulation, he would definitely be attacked by the lightning tribulation. This was very awkward. Why don't I have someone cultivating beside me? When the lightning tribulation condensed into a lightning tribulation energy body, many lightning bolts flew over to bombard him. Night Sorrow thought unhappily. Logically speaking, with the sea serpent's eye, he should have been able to detect someone cultivating right under his nose. But that was the truth. He didn't detect the other party. Boom! 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 While Night Sorrow was feeling unhappy, the lightning bolts began to bombard him fiercely. The lightning tribulation at the Sky Supreme level continuously bombarded him. That feeling was very uncomfortable. However, after being bombarded for a while, a thought suddenly flashed through Night Sorrow's mind. He thought to himself, although this is bad luck, isn't it also an opportunity? I can use the lightning tribulation in front of me to temper my body. Clan M. Chapter 3144. Although the intensity of the lightning tribulation is very high, it hasn't reached the level where it can destroy me. It's just right to temper my body. With this thought in mind, Night Sorrow soared into the sky and accepted the baptism of the lightning tribulation. Speaking of which, he still felt a lot of pressure when facing this level of lightning tribulation, but his gains were also great. His body's strength was rapidly increasing. Who is this? What is he trying to do? At this moment, the female cultivator, Bai, who was transcending the tribulation, looked at Night Sorrow with a puzzled expression. Because after Night Sorrow suddenly appeared, the lightning tribulation she suffered was much smaller. This allowed her to be in a better state to face the lightning tribulation energy body that was about to form. But in this mountain range, everyone's goal was the same, and that was to successfully survive until the end. Everyone was an opponent. When Bai saw Night Sorrow tempering his body in the lightning tribulation she attracted, she immediately raised her guard and was affected by the dark aura. She wanted to immediately attack Night Sorrow. And this thought was getting stronger and stronger. However, she knew that she was about to face the lightning tribulation energy body and absolutely could not be impulsive at this time. She had been suppressing the thought of fighting. Just like that, after 3 days, Bai finally led the lightning tribulation energy body and fought with it. At this time, the lightning that attacked Night Sorrow completely disappeared. Night Sorrow, whose body had been greatly strengthened, left satisfied. He knew that if Bai could successfully transcend the tribulation, she would probably turn around and attack him. Not everyone could remain sober and calm in the mountain range. After leaving the area where Bai was transcending the tribulation, Night Sorrow prepared to find a quieter place to recover. Because in the past few days, he had been attacked by lightning and suffered some injuries, which needed to be healed. However, Night Sorrow sat in a quiet valley and had just rested for a while when a sense of uneasiness suddenly rose in his heart. That feeling of panic made him feel very uncomfortable. He opened the sea serpent's eye to observe his surroundings but did not see anything unusual. He could not help but wonder, what's going on? Brother Night Sorrow, what's wrong with you? Noticing that something was wrong with Night Sorrow, Bai Mei Sanren immediately asked. I don't know why I'm panicking. It feels like I'm being stared at by an ancient beast. It feels very dangerous. Night Sorrow opened his mouth and expressed his feelings. There doesn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary around here. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Forbidden Breaking Hammer and Little Seven spoke in unison. Although they were not released, they could still sense a certain range. But just like Night Sorrow, there was no problem at all. At this time, Chen Qingyun's wife, Yang Fan, suddenly said, "Benefactor. The danger that existed. Could it be that he is stronger than us and can sense us, but we can't sense him? Or should I say, we can't sense that far away?" There were many experts in the fog region, and they were much stronger than in the eternal supreme world. This was because the civilization in the fog had never been interrupted, and the eternal supreme world had gradually been reborn from the destruction. She knew that there were many insufferably powerful experts in the foggy area. If Night Sorrow was being targeted by such an expert, it was normal that he couldn't sense the other party. That's possible. Hearing Chen Fan's words, Night Sorrow's thoughts suddenly became clear. He instantly understood. It was very likely that there was an existence that he couldn't fight against that was observing him. That was why he felt uneasy. In fact, his judgment was correct. After Yi Shang parted ways with Lin Dongqing and the others, Elder Su, who was worried that Lin Dongqing would secretly attack Yi Shang, immediately sent a voice transmission to one of the vice deans of Lu Tian Academy and told him about it. At this time, it was the vice dean who was observing him from afar. This little guy seems a little strange. But what's strange about him, even I can't tell. Vice Dean Ji Xian observed for a while and said to Elder Su. Because he was currently in the Lu Tian Academy and was not at the scene at all. Oh. Vice Dean, what do you mean? Is there something wrong with his background? Elder Su immediately asked after hearing Vice Dean Ji Xian's words. His aura. His aura is a little strange. I'll have to see him to determine what's strange about it. Vice Dean Ji Xian said and continued, if he can successfully advance, bring him to see me. Yes. Elder Su nodded and continued, what if Supervisor Lin Dongqing doesn't agree? Lin Dongqing is talented, but he's too arrogant. Ignore him. After Vice Dean Ji Xian finished speaking, there was no more sound. At this time, Night Sorrow slowly heaved a sigh of relief and said, that sense of danger just now is gone. That's good. Bai Mei Sanren heard and immediately relaxed. Night Sorrow was not the only one who was nervous just now. His friends in the Grotto Heaven were all worried as well. After all, they were bound together for good or ill. I can't completely relax yet. I think this matter is not simple. It's very likely related to whether I can sneak into the Lu Tian Academy. Night Sorrow thought for a while. The powerful existences around the Lu Tian Academy should all be from the Lu Tian Academy. He guessed that the person who was scrutinizing him should be a big shot in the academy. Upon hearing this, Bai Mei Sanren nodded and said, indeed, it might be the higher-ups from the Lu Tian Academy who are scrutinizing you. It should be. But I'm not sure if they can see through my identity in the Eternal Supreme Realm. If they do, I'll definitely die. Night Sorrow continued to transmit his voice. This matter was a wake-up call for him. He began to secretly think of a way to deal with it. Although he had the ancient coffin protecting him, he did not believe that the ancient coffin could resist the experts behind the Lu Tian Academy. Therefore, he had to think of a foolproof plan. I've finally found you. How dare you take advantage of me during my tribulation? Die. Just as Night Sorrow was thinking, a feminine voice suddenly came from above the valley. It was Bai Yu, who had just succeeded in her tribulation. You succeeded in transcending the tribulation so quickly. Seeing that it was Bai Yu, who had just transcended her tribulation, Yi Chang stood up in confusion. He felt that it had only been a short while since he entered the valley. In terms of time, it was about 20 breaths. Logically speaking, it was impossible for her to succeed in her tribulation in such a short period of time. Is it very fast to successfully pass the Heavenly Supreme Tribulation in 3 days? Bai Yu, who was floating in the void, had the aura of a Heavenly Supreme around her. She looked coldly at Night Sorrow and said, "I'll let you be the sacrifice for me to become a Heavenly Supreme. You've just succeeded in your tribulation. I advise you to stabilize your cultivation. Otherwise, you might lose more than you gain." Night Sorrow used the sea serpent's eye to observe Bai Yu. He found that although she had advanced to Heavenly Supreme, her aura was a little weak and not stable at all. He was not afraid of such an opponent. At the same time, he judged that the valley he was in was a little special. In terms of time, it was very likely that it was not the same as the outside world. Chapter 31:45. If that wasn't the case, the timing didn't match at all. It was impossible for the other party to defeat the Thunder Calamity Energy clone and become a Heavenly Sovereign in just a few moments. In other words, there might be a time formation in the nearby valley that he couldn't see through. However, he obviously didn't have the energy to study it now. Bai Yuan had already attacked him. Humph. You're just a lower earthly sovereign, and you want to fight me? Dream on. Bai Yuan looked insufferably arrogant in front of Night Sorrow. She didn't take him seriously at all. In her opinion, Night Sorrow just had a strong body and shouldn't have any strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen to run away when he was fighting against the Thunder Calamity Energy clone. I've let you go this time. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Night Sorrow said disdainfully as he fought back with his golden heavenly halberd. She might be the first cultivator to become a heavenly sovereign. His true strength was enough to fight against an ordinary heavenly sovereign. Naturally, he wasn't afraid of her. Boom! When Night Sorrow's golden heavenly halberd and Bai Yuan's dual blades collided, there was an earth-shattering sound. The two of them retreated to a certain distance. This female cultivator is not ordinary. She's much stronger than an ordinary heavenly sovereign. However, I can still deal with her. After fighting for a while, Night Sorrow determined that Bai Yuan's strength was not far from heavenly sovereign and Ling's. He transmitted his voice to Bai Mei Sanren and the others, telling them not to worry. If he hadn't strengthened his body, he would have been completely suppressed. However, with the enhancement of his body's strength, Night Sorrow could engage in close combat with her, even though his overall strength was inferior. While Night Sorrow was thinking of a countermeasure, Bai Yuan was surprised. She knew that Night Sorrow's body was strong, but she didn't expect him to have such strong strength. This proved that their divine core strength wasn't very different. Although she had some advantages, she didn't have an overwhelming advantage overall since they were on the same level. Zhong Yu thought to himself, although his strength is not bad, his prowess is too weak. His divine Yuan Qi is definitely not as strong as mine. I'll just casually fight him for a while and exhaust his divine Yuan Qi, then I'll be able to kill him easily. Under the influence of the black aura, Bai Yu became extremely bloodthirsty, but her basic battle instincts were still present. Following his plan, he began to fight Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow chose to engage in close combat with Bai Yu. Bai Yu was very cooperative and had no intention of using any of its ultimate techniques. He began to compete with Night Sorrow in terms of God origin energy. However, after fighting for a while, something that Bai Yu and Night Sorrow did not expect happened. They had only fought for about 20 breaths, and they all felt that something was wrong. At the same time, he realized that his dantian was almost empty. Not good. This mountain valley is extremely mysterious. After fighting for just 20 breaths of time, I already feel like I've used up all my energy. It was even more exhausting than fighting for 3 days and 3 nights. His dantian was already empty. "Hun Dun, how are your injuries? This time, I'm afraid I'll need your help again." The Knight Sorrow, who discovered that something was wrong, already understood what was going on. He prepared to summon the Chaos Heavenly Crystal Beast out immediately. This was his battle pet. Summoning it out to fight was not against the rules. As for Bai Mei Sanren and the rest, if they were summoned out, it would count as Knight Sorrow cheating. And however, the Chaos Heavenly Crystal Beast who received the voice transmission said weakly, "The frequency of your battle is seriously too fast. I haven't recovered at all and completely don't have the strength to fight. All right. I'll think of a way myself. But if this female cultivator has more divine essence than me, then it'll be dangerous this time." The current Knight Sorrow had the thought of summoning the ancient coffin out. However, summoning it once, he discovered that his divine essence power was not enough and did not summon it out at all. This isn't easy to handle. The Knight Sorrow, who was suspended above the void, immediately felt his heart turn cold. Currently, for him to be able to fly in midair, it was not relying on divine essence power at all, but relying on his body. But at this time, he discovered that Bayu's face already had a look of horror. Knight Sorrow immediately understood. Although this Bayu did not expend all like him, the exhaustion was definitely severe. The Knight Sorrow, who already did not have much combat strength, laughed at this time and said, "Ah, you indeed fell for it. Is my array formation still strong enough?" After all, it was Knight Sorrow who came to this valley first. He felt that saying so at this time, Bayu would definitely fall for his empty fort stratagem. In this valley, the rate of divine essence power consumption was simply horrifying. Originally, he who still had roughly 10% divine essence power, in the process of transmitting voice to the Chaos Heavenly Crystal Beast, it was completely exhausted. Even flying was relying on his body itself. This feeling was too unbearable. "Turns out that you deliberately lured me here. Despicable." The current Bayu, the divine essence power consumption within her body was similarly very horrifying. As she spoke, she already did not dare to attack anymore. Furthermore, she could feel that the divine essence power within her dantian was about to be completely exhausted right away. Cursing a sentence, she flew out of the valley. So close. If she used the last trace of divine essence power to display an ultimate art just now, I definitely can't withstand it. Knight Sorrow looked at the Bayu who flew away, secretly feeling some lingering fear. The other party was a genius after all. After advancing to Heavenly Supreme, her divine essence power was indeed a little more robust than his. It was just that, at the critical moment, she was frightened by him and fled in defeat. Otherwise, the one who lost this time might really be Knight Sorrow. It's still you who can keep your composure. If I expended all of it, I can't be so calm no matter what. Bai Mei Sanren transmitted with a smile. Regarding the matter of Knight Sorrow scaring Bayu away, he and Chen Qingyun and the rest were all very impressed. This valley is too special. Not only is the time different from the outside world, divine essence power consumption is also very horrifying when fighting. Absolutely can't stay for long. Finally, Knight Sorrow said a word and chose a direction, immediately leaving the valley. Not long after leaving, Knight Sorrow heard Bayu, who was not far away, emitting a scream. It should be that Bayu encountered other cultivators under the situation where she expended all of it. It seemed like she was being ravaged. If the cultivator she encountered was only vicious and merciless, I'm afraid that after killing him, he'll come and find me immediately. After analyzing the situation, Yishan consumed a few pills to recover his primordial spirit energy. He hid in a cave and began to recover. He was clear that it was absolutely impossible to wander around under the situation where his divine essence power was depleted. At this time, with Bayu and the male cultivator who ravaged her as a shield, the safest place in front of him was in front of him. Roughly an hour later, Bayu's screams completely disappeared, and at this time, Night Sorrow also recovered. He had just recovered when a thunderous roar sounded out in the void. After listening to the show for so long, you should also come out and fight, right? Very clearly, this was the other party preparing to continue fighting with Night Sorrow after ravaging Bayu to death. Stealing incense. Chapter 3146. Another opponent who has just become a heavenly sovereign. Night Sorrow looked over and used the eye of the sea serpent to see that it was a cultivator with a human body and a dragon body. At this moment, he was still in a state of excitement. Seeing that Night Sorrow was sizing him up, he sneered, haha. Playing with a female cultivator has consumed a lot of divine origin energy. I can eat you to make up for it. Eat me. How arrogant of you. Why don't I break your dog head? Night Sorrow took out the golden heavenly halberd. He, who had completely recovered his divine origin energy, did not hesitate to use the Treistrimsa battle mystic technique. He knew that with his current realm, it was still difficult to fight against a heavenly sovereign. Therefore, he had to go all out. Stubborn. She was stubborn just now, but wasn't she completely conquered by me in the end? A sinister and disdainful smile appeared on Long Haotian's face. In his opinion, although a lower earthly sovereign like Night Sorrow should have some ability, he was definitely not his match. You only took advantage of her depleted divine origin energy. Come, let me see if you really have the strength. Yi Shang roared and unleashed the Qingxian godly spear technique to attack. How dare you be so brave when you can't even withstand a single blow? Long Haotian said contemptuously in the face of Night Sorrow's attack. Then, he took out a long spear that was shining with a yellow light. He did not use any unique skills and attacked Night Sorrow. You don't even use any unique skills. Aren't you being too arrogant? Seeing that Long Haotian did not even use any unique skills, Night Sorrow sneered. At the same time, he increased the strength of his attack. Boom! 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 After several consecutive confrontations, Night Sorrow had the upper hand. If that's all you have, you're definitely not that female cultivator's match. After Night Sorrow gained the upper hand, he had the intention to be unforgiving and continuously suppressed him. This was the essence of the Qingxian divine spear technique. It was continuous and had a strong explosive power, but the consumption was a little high. If I can kill her, I can naturally torture you. Long Sitian bellowed in disdain before he completely ignited the power of his bloodline. After burning his bloodline power, his arms and neck were covered in scales. In the blink of an eye, the aura around him also increased by quite a bit. Cloud gathering, waterspout. After Long Sitian's strength increased, he immediately unleashed his clan's lost skill. In an instant, the color of the sky changed, and strong winds blew. This caused the sand and gravel on the ground to fly up and form a huge vortex. After the vortex was formed, it surrounded Long Sitian as if it had merged with him. With great momentum, it attacked Night Sorrow. Divine Origin Trapping Array. Dragon Roar and Phoenix Cry. Facing Long Haotian's attack, Night Sorrow did not continue to use the golden heavenly halberd. Instead, he trapped his opponent and used the Dragon's Roar and Phoenix's Cry. Together with the tornado, they were trapped in a sealed space. Not only was Long Haotian's attack interrupted, he could even feel his divine soul being shaken. It made him feel very uncomfortable. Do you like trapping others? Very good. Heavenly Dragon Umbrella. Out. Long Haotian, who felt that his divine soul was damaged, immediately took out a secret treasure from his spatial artifact and threw it into the air. The Heavenly Dragon Umbrella was summoned and immediately began to spin. At the same time, countless silver threads shot out. After these silver threads appeared, they quickly formed a net and attacked Night Sorrow from all directions. Long Haotian wanted to use this net to trap Night Sorrow inside and then attack. Eternal Life Amplification Spear. At this moment, Night Sorrow was using the Eternal Life Amplification Spear that had just been strengthened recently. When Night Sorrow learned this spear, its grade was not high. At this moment, when he used it, the principle was similar to when he used it in the past, but the attributes were completely different. It was not weak. On the contrary, the moment he used it, Long Haotian felt as if time had stopped. He was temporarily paralyzed. Not good. Why can't I break free? While Long Haotian felt that he was paralyzed, the speed of the net in the void was also much slower. It looked as if it was in slow motion. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow naturally dodged the net easily and stabbed at him with the golden heavenly halberd. Stop. At this moment, Long Haotian seemed to be immersed in an eternal nightmare and could not control his body at all. He could only wait quietly for Night Sorrow's attack. You are inferior to her. Seeing that Long Haotian was frozen by the Eternal Life Amplification Spear, Night Sorrow coldly roared and stabbed the golden heavenly halberd into Long Haotian's dantian. Impossible. This is impossible. By the time Long Haotian could move, his dantian had already been crippled. Nothing is impossible. You are inferior to her and your strength is much weaker. Not only is her strength stronger than you, she is also stronger than me. But she is defeated in terms of temperament. Night Sorrow said and directly destroyed Long Haotian's divine soul. He did not give him any chance to counterattack. Yi Shang knew very well that there were no good people in this mountain range. After killing him, he took Long Haotian's spatial device. Before Night Sorrow could check, he sensed that someone was approaching. He, who had consumed a lot of energy, did not want to continue fighting. Therefore, he used his movement skill and rushed into the distance. After leaving a distance, Night Sorrow looked back with the sea serpent's eye. It was another cultivator who had just become a heavenly supreme. He could not help but complain, I'm really unlucky. I've met all the people who have become heavenly supremes. I wonder when this evil will be over. The one who tied the bell should untie it. I guess that the curse can only be lifted by killing that dancing woman, right? After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Xiaowu said with some uncertainty. Even if it's true, it won't be easy to find that dancing woman. I think it's better to find a place and quietly wait for all kinds of opponents. I think there aren't many cultivators left in the mountain range. After saying this, Night Sorrow landed on a hillside and sat on a bluestone under a huge tree to recover his divine origin energy. However, his divine origin energy had not completely recovered. A familiar figure appeared in front of him. This familiar figure was the dancing woman they had just mentioned. At this time, the dancing woman had also advanced to the heavenly supreme level. Seeing that Yi Shang was recovering, a cruel smile appeared on the face of the swaying woman, who was floating in the air. She said, I've finally found you. The descent of all evil can end here. I didn't expect that you would also advance to the heavenly supreme level. Originally, Night Sorrow and the dancing woman were evenly matched. Now that the other party had advanced to the heavenly supreme level, he felt that it would be difficult for him to fight against her. After saying this, he directly activated the 33 Heavens battle secret technique and burned his bloodline power to use his movement skill to run wildly. Want to run? Can you run? At this time, the dancing woman was like a ghost floating in the void, but her speed was not slow at all. With a sneer, he chased after her. I want to talk to more like-minded people about becoming a god, follow excellent reading literature, on WeChat, talk about life, find confidence. Stealing incense. Chapter 3147. In the process of chasing, the dancing woman's eyes kept shooting out black rays. These black rays carried a strong corrosive aura, which caused Knight Sorrow a lot of trouble. Because he couldn't use the power of merit, after being hit by the light, a small area of his body quickly festered. If it weren't for Knight Sorrow's high physical strength, not only would his skin fester, but it would also penetrate deep into his bones. This can't go on. I'm no match for her in battle, and I'm continuously attacked from a distance when I escape. I might as well lure her to the Heavenly Sovereign just now. The way of life for the time being, he was no match for the dancing woman, but Knight Sorrow wasn't depressed because of this. He knew that the other party was also a genius-level figure. With a gap of a whole realm, it was normal for him to be no match for her. After thinking for a while, Knight Sorrow lured the dancing woman to the place where he had just met the Heavenly Sovereign. I can make use of the eye technique she's using to attack that Heavenly Sovereign. While running in that direction, Knight Sorrow thought of a countermeasure. At this time, the dancing woman had been attacking him with her eye technique, so he would lure her to attack the Heavenly Sovereign just now. Sigh. There are so many geniuses in this foggy area. There aren't many Heavenly Sovereigns in the entire Eternal Supreme world. They're popping up like they're free. The great calamity has begun. How can our Eternal Supreme world fight against them? When Knight Sorrow fled to the expected location, Baimei Sanren in the Space Grotto Heaven said very pessimistically. Ever since he came to the foggy area, he felt like he had suffered a blow. The overall strength of this foggy area was thousands of times stronger than the Eternal Supreme world. The two sides were not on the same level at all. There's hope as long as we're alive. Don't we still have time to grow? Hearing Baimei Sanren's words, Knight Sorrow responded and continued, in terms of the number of experts, our Eternal Supreme world is definitely no match for the foggy area. But if a few Supreme Realm experts appear among us and suppress the other party in terms of absolute combat power, then there's hope for survival. It is precisely because of this that I hope to quickly find a suitable body for senior longevity. At this point, Knight Sorrow no longer avoided Baimei Sanren and the others when talking about supreme longevity. After Knight Sorrow finished, Baimei Sanren sighed and continued, "It's easier said than done. It's not easy, but hope hasn't been cut off. This proves that there's still hope. The path of cultivation had always been one that defied the heavens. So what if the chances are small?" While using his movement technique to escape, Yishan continued to talk to Wanderer Whitebrow. To him, as long as he was alive, the thoughts in his heart would never be severed. "You're quite fast." Just as Knight Sorrow and Baimei Sanren were communicating, Dancing Lady, who had been chasing after them, gradually became angry. This was because she realized that although she was stronger than Knight Sorrow, their speed was about the same. Although she could use her eye techniques to constantly exhaust Knight Sorrow, she couldn't completely catch up to him. This made her very uncomfortable and angry. "I should be faster than you." Knight Sorrow originally didn't want to mock her, but now he realized that the two of them were very close to the Heavenly Supreme in front of them. The Heavenly Supreme in front of them had probably discovered their existence. However, the Heavenly Supreme in front of them was obviously hiding in the dark. Dancing Lady probably hadn't discovered his existence at all. Therefore, he deliberately lured Dancing Lady to launch an even fiercer attack. What's the use of being fast? Without strength, you can only wait for death. Thousand Phantom Light. Still unable to catch up to Knight Sorrow, Dancing Lady was completely furious. She directly summoned thousands of eyeballs and used these eyeballs to launch a fierce attack. This was the race's unique skill that she had awakened after advancing to the Heavenly Supreme level. It was very powerful. Good. Good. The more powerful, the better. Seeing that Dancing Lady had launched such a powerful attack, Knight Sorrow immediately used an even more powerful movement technique to dodge. Although some of the Thousand Phantom Light bombarded him, he knew that if he could find an opportunity to use the power of merit, he would definitely be able to recover quickly. Therefore, he wasn't too worried. As for most of the attacks in the Thousand Phantom Light, they were all aimed at the Heavenly Supreme in the dark. Bastard! If you want to fight, then fight. How dare you attack me? Although the Heavenly Supreme who was attacked by the Thousand Phantom Light dodged most of the attacks, he was still completely furious. After all, in the mountain range, he was extremely excited. The desire to fight was extremely strong, and he couldn't control his fighting spirit at all. The one I want to kill is him. This has nothing to do with you. Stay away. Dancing Lady glanced at the Heavenly Supreme in front of her and said coldly. Then, she continued to attack Night Sorrow. At this moment, Night Sorrow simply stopped running and started to fight with Dancing Lady. The two of them looked as if they didn't care about the nearby Heavenly Supremes at all. This completely enraged Ape Tianlai. He roared unhappily, "Do the two of you really think that I, Ape Tianlai, am easy to bully? Die, all of you!" After roaring, he attacked Night Sorrow and Dancing Lady. Very quickly, the battle became a fierce battle between the three of them. Both Ape Tianlai and Dancing Lady were severely affected by the dark aura. They fought very crazily and didn't care about their targets at all. Night Sorrow maintained a certain level of rationality. His goal was very clear, and that was to protect himself. Under the support of this tactic, he basically only defended and didn't attack. Gradually, Ape Tianlai and Dancing Lady's guard against him became much lower. Later on, the attacks they used against him became much weaker. This night demon is quite cunning. It's just that his strength is too weak. He can't fight against the other two and will be killed in the end. As the battle between Ape Tianlai and Dancing Lady unfolded, Lin Dongqing, who was watching through the bronze mirror, had a look of disdain. He despised Night Sorrow's way of protecting himself. At this moment, Elder Su smiled and said, "In the mountains, being able to maintain one's rationality is also a kind of strength. Although he's not as strong as the other two, his thinking in battle is clearly clearer than the other two. This is very rare. After all, he's only a lower earthly sovereign. And our Lu Tian Academy hasn't recruited a cultivator of this level. If he can advance, it'll be a good story." Indeed. And he's not far from the final advancement. At this moment, there are still 15 cultivators left in the mountains. And there are also fierce battles in the other areas. As long as he continues to persevere, he'll soon advance. Elder Murong, who was standing at the side, also said. At this point in time, the preliminaries were nearing their end. Following the progress of a few battles, the 10 people who could successfully advance were about to be born. I didn't expect him to take advantage of this loophole. After Elder Murong finished speaking, Lin Dongqing looked at the other bronze mirrors. At this moment, Night Sorrow's condition was considered good. If there were no accidents, he would most likely advance. This made him very unhappy, and he secretly thought of a countermeasure. Stealing incense. Chapter 3148. That's it. The problem now is that if this continues, Night Demon will advance because the others have been eliminated. If I mediate the battles in the other areas, then he will have to fight to the end. This lowly lower earthly sovereign will definitely fall. After thinking for a while, Lin Dongqing quickly came up with a countermeasure. However, before Lin Dongqing could execute his plan, there was a change in the battle. At this moment, under the continuous attacks of Dancing Lady, Ape Tianlai completely exploded. As he roared into the sky, his body's strength instantly increased by nearly 10 times. He held the giant rod in his hand and crazily smashed it at Dancing Lady. It's a good thing that such a strong attack isn't aimed at me. Otherwise, with Dancing Lady's interference, I wouldn't be able to withstand it. Seeing Ape Tianlia's powerful attack, Night Sorrow said with lingering fear. At this moment, Dancing Lady wasn't having a good time either. After Ape Tianli exploded, coupled with Night Sorrow's interference, it was very difficult for her to deal with him. Although Night Sorrow's strength was slightly weaker than hers and Ape Tianlia's, it was definitely not something the two of them could ignore. Die! The berserk Ape Tianli completely ignored him and continued his frenzied attacks. His crazy appearance was like an ordinary person going crazy. It looked a little evil. Obviously, this was the effect of the fog in the mountain range. Night Sorrow thought for a while and felt that if he got rid of Dancing Lady and used his speed to get rid of Ape Tianli, he could successfully save his life. Thus, he directly shot the godly shot at Dancing Lady. The difference between this shot and the previous one was that its attack power was much stronger, and the attributes it contained had reached the level of a heavenly sovereign. Therefore, even a heavenly sovereign like Dancing Lady would be threatened. You're forcing me to use my true strength. Facing Ape Tianli and Night Sorrow's attacks, Dancing Lady was completely enraged. As she roared, she summoned thousands of eyeballs again. They floated in the void. These eyeballs seemed to be even more evil than before. This might have something to do with her advancing into a heavenly sovereign. Seeing Dancing Lady summon her eyeballs again, Night Sorrow suddenly felt his hair stand on end, and a bad premonition flashed in his heart. Kill! 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 Yuan Tianli, on the other hand, seemed to have gone completely berserk. He didn't care about anything else and just kept attacking Hausa woman. Wan! Evil! Descend! Lin! At this moment, Dancing Woman once again used Descent of All Evil. This time, Night Sorrow discovered that her evil intentions had already disappeared without a trace. Even if he wanted to hide, he didn't know where to hide. He could only flee into the distance. Trying to escape. How could it be that easy? Divine Origin Trapping Array. Seeing that Night Sorrow wanted to escape, a strange smile appeared on Dancing Woman's face. He cast a Divine Essence Trapping Array in the direction Night Sorrow had fled. This move was very similar to the Divine Essence Trapping Array that Night Sorrow executed before, but the power was slightly weaker. It could only stop Night Sorrow for a moment. It was at this moment that Night Sorrow felt as if he had been hit by the descent of all evil once again. Looks like he was going to be plagued by bad luck again. However, what's going on with her Divine Essence Trapping Array? After being hit by the descent of all evil again, Night Sorrow was relatively calm. However, he couldn't figure out why Dancing Woman could use the Divine Essence Trapping Array. Moreover, if she could use it, why didn't she trap him back then? That way, he wouldn't have been able to escape. It's very strange. Why can I use your technique? Let me tell you, my eye technique can copy anyone's ultimate skill. Dancing Woman clearly saw the doubts in Night Sorrow's heart. As she roared, she said, "As for why I didn't trap you just now, it's because I wanted to use the two of you to stimulate my potential. Looks like I did it. Transform." Just as Dancing Woman roared the word transform, she immediately transformed from her human form into the appearance of an eyeball. This eyeball looked like an extremely evil black hole. Being stared at by it, Night Sorrow immediately felt very awkward. At this moment, Ape Tianli had been hit by the descent of all evil in his berserk state. His aura had weakened a lot. However, his aura had become even more berserk, but it was difficult for him to attack Dancing Woman's body. He could only attack the thousands of small eyeballs in the void. That blockhead seems to have gone crazy. Why is his attack so messy? In the Space Grotto Heaven, seeing that Ape Tianlia's attack was still powerful but messy, Little Seven immediately complained. Hearing Little Seven's complaint, Night Sorrow said, "I think he must be in a berserk state and has been completely affected by the black gas in the mountain range. Therefore, he can't control himself. He's completely lost. Then what should we do? If he's killed, you definitely won't be able to escape from Dancing Woman." Little Seven said worriedly. "It's not that I can't escape from her, but I might have to use the ancient coffin." As Night Sorrow replied, he thought about how to save Ape Tianlai. After all, saving him was equivalent to saving himself. "I didn't expect the two of you to be so weak. But since you've stimulated my potential, I'll let you go. I'll leave your corpses intact." Soul Eater Bewildering Light. At this moment, Dancing Woman, who had turned into a black hole, let out a deafening roar. She attacked Night Sorrow and Ape Tianlai at the same time. She believed that under the interference of the descent of all evil, Night Sorrow and Ape Tianlai wouldn't be able to escape from her most powerful technique. And after Whirling Woman attacked, Night Sorrow immediately felt that his life was in danger. Without hesitation, he took out the spatial device with the ancient coffin and used it to block in front of him. This time, Night Sorrow learned his lesson and didn't summon the ancient coffin directly. Boom! Boom! Dancing Woman shot out two beams of Soul Eater Bewildering Light. One of them landed on Ape Tianlia's body and almost killed him completely. It made him lose his ability to fight and regain his consciousness. After completely regaining his consciousness, Ape Tianlai looked around and thought, "My life is over." According to his judgment, Dancing Woman would definitely kill him and Night Sorrow. There was no suspense. The other beam of Soul Eater Bewildering Light hit the ring that Night Sorrow had taken out. Because the ancient coffin was in the ring, when it was hit, a large amount of black gas suddenly appeared outside the ring. This black gas completely devoured the Soul Eater Bewildering Light, causing it to not cause a single ripple. This ancient coffin is indeed powerful. Seeing that the ancient coffin in the spatial ring had directly blocked the Soul Eater Bewildering Light, Night Sorrow immediately heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, to outsiders, only his spatial ring was powerful, but they couldn't see the existence of the ancient coffin. Seeing that the Soul Eater Bewildering Light didn't have any effect on Night Sorrow, Dancing Woman said in surprise, "What kind of secret treasure is that? It can actually block my Soul Eater Bewildering Light." Stealing Fragrance. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.